From the broken ruins of Babylon, this is End of Days Radio. I'm your host, Daniel, broadcasting to you all the way from that shimmering emerald city right here in the beautiful heart of the Pacific Northwest. Sorry, I was just hearing some very weird noises coming from outside. I was hearing some kind of crazy honking or something and just wanted to make sure there's nothing wrong out there. But anywho, today's date is February 8th, 2020. Yes, it is 2020. We are seeing 2020 here because it's the year 2020. I expect many amazing things to happen this year and the next. Looks like we've already got some people on the live chat. Remember, you can watch this show live at YouTube. Just go to our channel and watch us live. Anytime we're broadcasting live, if you're a subscriber, you'll get a little notification. I'm not streaming over the old stream anymore because I can only upload so much data at once. So this is the only way the show is being broadcast live, unfortunately. So if you like the live show, you're going to have to get in on the video live show, the video cast. Today's guest is actually a gentleman by the name of Connor Murphy. Connor Murphy, he grew up in Chicago. Now he lives in New York State. He's a boxer, so he has a lifetime of experience fighting. He's also a spiritual researcher who has been studying secret societies as well as the global elite Illuminati, and who is now currently being stalked by some very strange UFOs. So I'm going to go ahead and dial him up and get him on the line.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Connor, how you doing?
Doing good, you?
I'm doing excellent. I'm just going to pause for 2 seconds because I'm going to go ahead and get you pulled up here on the big screen.
Alrighty.
Okay, perfect. I wanted to go ahead and start off by just asking a little bit about who you are. Where is it that we know you grew up in Chicago, but could you tell us a little bit about what your upbringing was like? Were you raised religious? Was there anything challenging going on? Were you into sports back then?
Yeah, I played a lot of sports growing up. I was raised in decent area, Roman Catholic family, the typical stuff. But yeah, I played football, boxed for a long time when I was growing up. Did a little bit of track, and yeah, that's about it for the sports. But yeah, typical Roman Catholic family. So we were brought up north side of Chicago. Just overall, typically, like I would say, relatively average upbringing. If that's a general way to put it.
Did you say Roman Catholic?
Yeah.
So was it a little bit like strict in terms of that?
I wouldn't say that my family was really like cultish with it, if that's the right word. They like my grandfather was a Catholic and my dad is as well. I wouldn't say that I am at this point, obviously, but they weren't super strict about it. But I had to go to like the CCD and stuff, so I had that type of background, I guess. I'm very familiar with that religion. Nothing else.
How did football go? Did you get any concussions or anything like that?
I broke a foot once, but never any concussions unless I got it and I just really wasn't aware of it. But only thing was a broken bone and really no injuries boxing either, which is a blessing. But it's both of those are definitely taxing sports on your body, and it's more of a matter of like if or really when something happens rather than if.
So nothing in boxing, no blurred vision, or you don't
Well,
ever.
yeah, I mean, minor stuff like that from sparring for sure, but never anything serious like a concussion or something that like keeps you out of the gym for a while.
What drew you to boxing?
Um, actually, I when I was a younger kid, I had gotten into a fight and lost. And in Chicago, it's a very like I don't want to say violent, but that's really one of the few words that describes it. And there's just a lot of clashing. And I had never really lost a fight because I had never fought someone bigger than me. And I lost it. And my dad basically was like, well, why don't you take up boxing? Went over when I was in, I want to say, 7th grade, so maybe 11-ish years old, somewhere around there. And I never really stopped doing that. Some of my friends did it. It started off as something that like I looked at as it kind of sucked because the training was nothing that like a 7th grader would enjoy. But after you put your months into it, I think that you kind of you gain some respect for the craft. So stuck with it since. It was the only thing that I was really good at either too. So it's probably a part of it.
Were you pretty scared the first time you had to actually fight somebody?
In boxing ring or in...
Yeah, like the first time, like you had
yeah.
an official like amateur fight, was it pretty terrifying?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that everybody has their own type of way that they deal with it, but the level of anxiety is pretty ridiculous because if you ever get in a street fight, it's typically something stirs your emotions or somebody's emotions are getting to the level where it's just you're into adrenaline. But with that, it's like you're sitting the whole day and you're just preparing mentally, not even physically, just for what's going to come. And it's just it's such a different dynamic when you just have a set date in your head and a set time and you're just waiting for it. To me, it always felt like the longest couple of hours.
Did you ever knock anybody out?
Yeah, I've gotten not like cold, but I've gotten like TKO stoppages because the amateur fights, they're more, my style would be suited more for the pros if I ever had that opportunity, and if I progressed that far enough. But the amateurs are more like point fighting, if that makes sense. It's kind of like you're not looking for the big shots, especially when I was younger. The rules are different now, but when I had first started doing it, it was based on how many you landed, rather than like now they do it by like the 10-point scoring system, like the UFC and basically all combat sports do it professionally in Muay Thai. But back then it was like if you landed 16 punches, let's say, and the other guy landed 15, even if he landed 15 really hard ones, the guy who lands one more one. So it was a bit of a different thing. And I was always decently fast, but I'd say that my strength was kind of the thing that gave me the edge. So that was a major challenge, amateur. But they typically don't stop, or they don't really let it get to the point where you can knock people out cold unless you get a really great punch. And when you get them in a corner, the amateurs stop it really fast. Like my last fight, they stopped in the first round because I got a bloody nose for fucked up my record, and it was for a tournament too. But they're very overly sensitive. I'd say that the professional game and the amateur game are like worlds apart in terms of how they allow damage and effective aggression and all that.
What do you think of Floyd Mayweather Jr.? Are you a fan of his?
It's funny because my dad and I grew up watching Pacquiao with my dad all the time. And Floyd I liked, but I always thought that Pacquiao would beat him growing up. And then obviously I was completely wrong about that when that happened. But I respect his style for sure. And you can't really deny that he's one of the best, but it's like very, I'd say it's pretty opposite to what I go in there and try and do. I'm definitely focused more on offense than defense, but he's the best defensive fighter I think I've ever seen. So you got to give him the credit where it's due. And I have lost too much money betting on friends against him for that stupid Pacquiao fight. So I definitely rank him very highly. I'm a big fan of the craft that he's been able to pull off. And he changed the game too, because the more that he got popular, I feel like more people in gyms started doing the Philly shell thing. And that's always been a thing, even in the olden days, but I feel like he really brought that back. Something that's very hard to do. I don't know. I could talk a lot about boxing and Floyd Mayweather because he is just his jab. Really, that alone, he can beat most people.
Yeah, that Philly shell thing. I think you have to be really good to do that. I think a lot of people watch Floyd Mayweather and they think like, oh, I'm going to start doing the Philly shell, but they don't realize they're kind
Yeah.
of like dropping their hands a little bit to do it. And really, if you're a beginner, you got to have your hands like protecting your face,
Oh
not trying to be
yeah.
fancy or anything like that.
And that's the thing. It's like you need to have such intense, not just upper body movement, but like reaction time and genetics. There's a lot that goes into that. Like I couldn't fight like that. I don't think it just wouldn't be. And one of my trainers, his name was Joey Valley, and that guy was one of the best people I think I've ever seen. Definitely top two that I've ever had the experience of sparring. And he was toying with me for a little bit doing that, and you could tell that when he was in the Philly shell, it wasn't like I don't know what the word is. It wasn't like as easy for him to handle. And he's a very skilled fighter. Like he was 5-0 with like 3 or 4 knockouts and just rolling everybody that he fought. But it's different people. You know, the like Latin American countries, they typically have like that come forward style, and then like Eastern Europeans different and Americans different. And Philly shell's just like in a league of its own. Defensively, that is. I think offensively, it really limits what you can do against good fighters. But if you're good enough, as you can see, it doesn't really matter. So,
Do you watch MMA too, or just boxing?
oh yeah, I'm interested in the Jones fight tonight. He's probably gonna kill him, but the last fight he didn't look too good. The gym that I most recently trained at was MMA, so it was like jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, and boxing were the three.
Do you have any favorite fighters? Like, well, of course you do, but who are your favorite fighters? Like counting boxing and MMA.
All time or right now?
Why don't we do all time? That's kind of more interesting, I think.
Uh, all right. Well, for boxing, I said Pacquiao. He is 100% up there. I wish I had that man's speed, but I look at his offense, and that's something that I like. Muhammad Ali is probably my favorite all time, I'd have to say, just because that was who I grew up watching. My grandpa showed me a lot of Joe Louis, too. That was another one where some of these old school guys, like, there's not too much film on them, but what you can see of them, you can tell that they're at least skill, maybe not like size wise, but skill wise, they can compete with them. So I'd say Pacquiao, Ali. There's a ton. You know, I really liked Vitaly Klitschko too. Back in, I guess it was 5-10 years ago, maybe. He was destroying everybody. Lennox Lewis is another good one. Yeah, all time. Honestly, probably the typical ones that you're thinking of. I try to figure out. I try to pull things from past fighters. If some of them it's impossible to emulate. Like Floyd, I'll never be able to pull some of the crap that he does. But with like Joe Louis and like Muhammad Ali, Muhammad Ali breaks the fundamentals, but like his footwork, for example, there's just things that you can pull from any of them. So it's like Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Marvin Hagler, those guys from that era, and other ones. And for MMA, though, I used to grow up, we loved John Jones, but now he's done so much crazy shit, it's hard to even know what to think of him. I'm obviously a McGregor fan because, you know, Irish, but I did like Jose Aldo as well, and I thought Jose was going to win that when they were coming up. Let me think. Oh, and Fedor is one of my favorite MMA fighters.
Yeah, speaking of
But
Fedor, what you're kind of saying about styles and the Russian style, his style is really weird. He kind of just it's like
yeah,
nothing.
he's got a weird like body type too. He looks kind of like he's got like the dad bod, just like but he's not like there's a fight, I forget, it was this one black guy who was a lot bigger than him, and he was like a pretty bad person if I remember right. He did some fucked up shit, but he was just huge, and he was like on this big KO streak, and like Fedor was like out muscling him. And there's just something about those Eastern European fighters where it's like they just have, I don't know, it just seems like they do very well ever since that like Cold War, you know, because they were the communists and I guess they couldn't go pro. They had to stay amateur. So they couldn't make profit off of it. And now that they're all going pro, you see that they're just like dominating everybody. like with Triple G and Lomachenko and boxing and Khabib and MMA.
And at what point in your life did you realize that there's something strange going on out there?
Oh, well, the first thing when I was probably like eighth grade, I saw this 9/11 video, and it really it made me ask some questions because it was like the Trade Center thing, but I kind of like brushed that off to the back of my head. And then in my sophomore year of high school, I just kind of like went on like Reddit and stuff, and then I went on Reddit conspiracy, and that's a place where shills like live looking back on it. But at the time, there were some posts about Rothschild and like the banking system, and it was this little cartoon, and it's still, if you looked it up, it was like the history of banking in America or something, but it was a cartoon that followed like the Rothschild, like essentially the international banking cartel. And that, I think, was the thing that made me realize that like there's something very wrong here. And I also read Ron Paul's book, And the Fed, when I was a sophomore, and I was just like, this does not make sense that a like free society has all of their money owned by individuals. You know what I mean? Because it's like, if you think about it, it's like they own the money that it takes for you to buy food and exist and pay for like anything that you have around you. And if you really think about it, that's the same as them owning the actual food or owning your actual house. If they own the money that, you know, is equivalent in value, and you can't unless you build it yourself. So it's like society kind of, I think, I realized in high school, just being like a rebellious asshole teenager, like none of this makes sense. But I think that also I over the years that the like how I woke up to the strange things is it wasn't just like one event. It was like an accumulation, I would say, of like I like first there was the Rothschild banking, and then you connect it to 9/11, and then you start getting into other theories. And I think that the big one that really I don't want to say cleared things up because it really left me with a lot more questions, but connected a lot of the dots was the flat Earth one, including your interview with Gregory, because that he put forth. I read his book as well, and he put forth a lot of evidence where it's like it's very difficult to deny that that man knew what he was talking about. So, and I had been trying to disprove flat Earth for about at least 2 years. And then it was like that was the final point where I saw that, and then someone sent me another video of some of the ISS fails and like the Challenger people surviving, and I'm like, Jesus Christ! I'm like, I think that I fell for this one, but
Kind of had a
yeah,
similar experience myself. When you first start to get into flat Earth, you feel like what you're seeing is messing with your mind, and you kind of just want to get it out of your head as quickly as possible and put things
yeah,
right. So you do that. You try to debunk it. And you try to debunk it. What happened to me was the more I tried to debunk it, just the worse it got. And eventually, I realized
yeah.
there really is no proof of a globe. And
And
then,
and I really didn't want to believe that too. I'm sure you felt the same way. Like,
yeah, even now, some of my family members will laugh at me. Like they'll be like, "What?" I'm like, okay,
oh
well,
yeah,
look into it, I guess.
I can't even talk about it with most people at this point. It's just, and the thing is it's very, very obvious once someone presents it to you, and like, not the like meme where it's like there's just a flat plane floating in space with like water falling off the edge and shit. Like it, once you see like a legitimate model and a legitimate, really once you just explore the heliocentric model and you see like all the flaws that are in that, with everything rotating around like the sun and then the center of the Milky Way, and then the Milky Way is rotating around the center of whatever else, and it's like, how in the world are the stars the same? Like, how could our ancestors 2,000 years ago predict exact movements and they're the exact same today? It just defies logic, in my opinion, that alone. But
Yeah,
it's something that I really didn't want to wake up to. I want to emphasize, like, it wasn't like I woke up and was like, oh man, I wish the earth was flat. Like, it
yeah,
was
like
very weird.
one thing that stands out like right away with me is you mentioned becoming kind of aware of this stuff fairly early on. Like me, I didn't even get into this stuff really heavily until probably like 30, but even when you're in high school, you're already kind of having these thoughts. Like, I can't imagine how that would set me apart from some of the other kids who are thinking about just vapid sort of who they're dating, going to the prom, stuff like that. What was that like for you?
Yeah. I mean, I still had that same experience, and I didn't really bring this up with most friends. Like, if I had certain friends who were like definitely more aware as well, we'd have conversations in high school, and I still have friends. There was some strange things that had occurred when I'd grown up in Chicago, where really weird stuff happening in my house that like defied logic, and actually for a while I was didn't really make sense, but I didn't believe in God at all from like seventh grade to about sophomore year because of all this weird stuff. And he had actually seen some of the orbs in the videos that I sent you. My friend and I had seen one in our room, and to this day I still keep in contact with him. And we talk about how ridiculous that shit was, and I send him some of the same stuff that I sent you, and it's like, sorry, I got a little bit off topic there, but I basically had the same experience, you know, like I played football, I had a bunch of friends, but it really does suck because you got to keep it to yourself, especially in high school, because it's like everybody has that stupid, like cliquey, like nobody wants to be out of the ordinary or whatever. So I basically would be thinking about things on like a much more deep level. And then I also had a teacher though that was very aware, and he helped with that. So I think that I was just blessed in a lot of ways where I could talk about it when I needed to. But for the most part, most people probably wouldn't know that like my opinions or my beliefs are what they are. So I think if I had time to talk about my experience to everybody, I think it'd be pretty hard for people to ignore. But I have brought it up to people even back in high school where you bring up evidence of like these crafts that are not planes, and it's like there's just certain people that will not, regardless of how much evidence you give them, they're not going to be able to like comprehend that. It's the same shit with flat Earth. Like it just some people, not even that they're not going to be able to comprehend it, but they're not going to be able to accept it, and it's just a lost cause. I think that I learned that pretty early on, is what I'm getting at. So it didn't bother me to the extent that I think it would if I did what I probably should have been doing, which is like explaining it to people every chance that I got. But live and you learn, I guess.
And what has been going on is something that is just so bizarre. I swear it comes right out of the Outer Limits or the Twilight Zone, or, you know, name your weird show and this is perfect. Yet you're actually seeing some really weird stuff going on up in the sky, aren't you?
Oh yeah, and the thing that's interesting is I'm not alone for a lot of this. Like the original craft that I had seen, which was this ridiculously, I want to say close to the length of a football field, maybe like probably a bit less than that, was this black cube that had just literally, it seemed like it had appeared out of nowhere because it didn't make a sound with an engine, and it was maybe 50 feet above the houses, if that, and it had just come right above us. But if I had seen a craft like that, and it was just this big metallic black cube with like plane wings, and it looked like it was just hovering, and you could feel the wind from it, but you couldn't hear it. And if I had seen that alone, I would have been questioning a lot of things about myself. But my sister and her best friend were both there with me, and they actually recorded it the second time in that like 30-second video. And they both saw it too, and it was a very chilling thing because it just stopped over us. And I was explaining to them about flat Earth as if this couldn't get any weirder. And so my sister was like, "Oh, it kind of looks like the stars are like pinholes of light through like a wall." And I was like, "Well, it's funny you say that." And I started talking about like the Jesuits and just the various theories about that. And then we saw a plane go by, and then we saw a helicopter, and I'm like, "Wow, that helicopter was close to the ground." And it gives me like chills even talking about it to this day, because just the feelings that thing evoked over us was strange. And we just see basically coming from out of that side this big like black thing in the sky, because you can see the stars kind of go. It literally looked like it was like pitch black, like had almost blended in with the night sky. And I looked up, and all I said was that was just like, that one is way too close to the ground, and it just stopped. And then I realized immediately, I'm like, this is not a plane. And it's incredible because it stopped there and it flashed this like it looked like a spotlight, you know, like if a cop car had like flashed a spotlight at you. And all three of us described this later when we got back inside was we felt like in our stomachs like something was like draining us. And I really kind of was freaking out because you feel pretty helpless when you see something that big just come over you. And essentially it just like stared at us. Like that's the only way I can describe it because the light was just there. And then it like slowly hovered. Like in no way have I seen a craft move like this before. That's the weirdest thing. It just slowly hovered. We were on a golf course at night and then it just went to the other side. And it looked like it was like patrolling or like looking around. It's super strange, like out of the Matrix movie, some weird shit. And I just turned to my sister and her friend and I'm like, we got to get out of here. I just had this gut feeling that like, my original thought was, I'm like, we just saw something that we weren't supposed to see. So knowing what I know, it was just smart to get out of there. And then I was just like, pretty sure that's what normal people would call a UFO. And we just got out of there and they were like kind of freaking out. And we basically sprinted back to our block. And we stopped once I got to the corner of our block and we looked back and the thing had come back around and had all these lights at the bottom of it. There's a video of a plane that someone else caught on YouTube, and it looked very similar to that, but this didn't even look like a plane. And it was just all these lights, and I was just like, all right, put some pep on your step. Let's just get inside, because the way that it made us feel was interesting. Like, I think that that's something that whatever those things are can do, because we, all three of us, when we got back inside, said when it flashed that light, our stomachs were like, it was like the worst body shot mixed with stage fright, like a draining feeling, and I'd never felt anything like that. And I was just like, no one's going to believe us, like what we just saw. And that's, I think later that night or maybe the next day, I was like emailing you or hitting you up on Twitter and hitting up that ETF No More Lies account before it left, just asking anybody that could possibly have any information on like what the hell we experienced. And I found a decent bit of info, but nothing exactly like what we saw. And then eventually ETF got me in contact with her YouTube channel is Life is a Mirage, and I sent the link as well. And she has a Twitter account under the same handle, I think. And she had been experiencing these and after I'd seen this, I should say, I started seeing a lot more things that were very strange. Like, I had always noticed like chemtrail planes, and I'd seen weird shit in the sky before, but ever since I saw that, which was around Thanksgiving, it's just ramped up like an unbelievable rate. Like the crap that I see, and this was in Northern Virginia that I had seen the cube with my sister, and I've seen them in New York, all the way down here, and it's like, no matter where I go, it seems like they're just, not every day, but pretty close to every other day. I'm like seeing it walking to school, and there's various things where it's like black helicopters that just aren't even like you can show them the video. It's
yeah,
like
I'll pull up that video. I pulled up the plane when you were talking. Next, I'll pull up that crazy freaking whatever the hell it is. Let's see.
The helicopter one.
Yeah.
And somebody else, there's another video of a helicopter going over a 9/11 memorial, and it does the same thing. It's like it should not be in the air moving at that slow of a speed.
What the fuck?
That's what I think about it. But you know, to be honest, all of this really like defies logic to me. So I've always been more of a rational thinker. Like I had thought to myself that there's always like a concrete explanation for things. And this is one of the few things in my life where I haven't been able to find like a very concrete explanation for any of it. So it's very strange, very strange. And but anyway, the Life is a Mirage, she helped me out by enhancing these images because she told me that they were interdimensional crafts or entities type things. And she basically proved it to me by some of those other pictures that I sent, where every single one of these, and the difference between this and like a normal plane or a helicopter, is they have this, if you increase the contrast and do some other enhancements, there's different filters and stuff that they use, I believe, but you can see that with these things, there's like this aura almost. It's like a portal behind them, this black portal behind all of these things, or like sometimes it's like bright white. And normal planes obviously don't have that going around it. And you see all these like CGI theories, and I had never believed in any of this crap or really given it any merit until I realized that it really probably wasn't crap, because I'm looking up and I'm like, this is the shit that I'm seeing. It's just a very surreal experience. But she is a true Christian, I would say, and that's where I'm at now too. I believe in the Bible. I do think that it has been altered to a degree, because the Council of Nicaea had to have done something, knowing who those people were. But overall, it seems that one of the banned books from the Council of Nicaea that they didn't include, the Book of Enoch, describes these things as like watchers, and there's I think it's Ezekiel's wheel, and they describe these things like these orbs and these weird crafts that just kind of like watch you, and that's what she had told me that they were. And at first I was a little bit skeptical, but it did make sense immediately when she said it. I was like, okay, this is a lot of help. And the more that I've experienced this, and as you can see, the stuff that I've accumulated, that to me seems to be the most likely theory that I've heard. But the craft that I did see looked like, the first one that I saw looked like almost like a drone thing. So another thing that I'm wondering is how this connects to AI, or are they using like is that like a holographic thing, or is that like a spiritual thing? Do you know what I'm getting at? Like,
Yeah, exactly. I was playing all the different videos kind of in a row just now as you were talking, and
yeah,
what was nice was it kind of timed where you were talking about it looking like a drone right when I was playing that one of the triangle craft flying over the building, and
yeah,
like I told you privately, one of the reasons why I got kind of excited when you started talking about this stuff and showing me this stuff is exact same thing was happening to me out where I live, and the triangle craft that I saw, it looked pretty much like the exact same thing as the ones in your videos, which is like,
yep.
what the hell's going on here?
That's the thing, and that's what I realized is I started getting in contact with certain, and it's not a significant amount, but enough people had posted about this stuff where it's like, okay, this isn't just, and I'm going to be totally honest with you, and this is probably a fault of mine, but I don't think that I would believe this like if I hadn't experienced it myself. So if somebody like doesn't believe what I'm saying, I don't really take it personally, because if I'm going to be honest with myself, I thought that a lot of this stuff was kind of like people just making stuff up or whatever, and until I experienced it myself, then I'm like, so now I know for a fact personally from experience that there's something to this. And that's why I'm just kind of, I don't want to say obsessed, but I'm very, very intent on finding the truth with this, because it's just so many people. And my sister was there, her best friend was there, and I went to go pick up one of my friends, and I forget which video it was, but it was one of the nighttime ones. I think it was the picture where it was a bit blurry, but you could see it was just this big bright craft. And there was a second one that we didn't even notice until we looked at the pictures. And my friend saw it with me, and I had told him about the black cube thing, and he's like, I wouldn't believe it if it was anybody else but you that told me. And I was like, well, thank you so much, and because that was a high compliment, because like I said, I probably wouldn't believe myself. And so then I'm picking him up, and I was just like, you want to see a UFO? And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I told you that I see this shit way too often. And we looked up, and right over were those two things. And before we got that picture, they were like by where we parked. And then as we had pulled around, and he saw this too. So now I'm just like, okay, thank God that like, like this sounds bad, but it's like, thank God that other people are also seeing this, because there's just a lot of questions I would have to ask myself if it was just me, like if I was alone for all of these. But
Yeah, but the thing is there, like with me, it felt like they were kind of like stalking me or trying to get in my head. And it seems like it might be a little bit similar with you, where they're a little
oh
too
yeah,
interested in you. That's creepy as
yeah,
hell.
oh yeah. The first couple of weeks with this, I was like, never experienced anything like it, and it was always at night. One time during the day that it had happened, it was just a biplane. It was just like, sir, I have this like 20-minute walk to get to my school, and it was just circling me over and over and over again. And like, it just, I really wish that I recorded that one, but it was freaking me out because it was getting so close and it just kept on circling the entire 20-minute walk all the way from like one end to campus. And I was like, okay, it's this super strange phenomena. But yeah, it's definitely something where it's like the more you notice that, the more that it notices you, in my opinion. Because ever since my friend had seen that, he's seen a bunch more. Like he went to Orlando and saw the same like helicopter crap, and it was just very interesting that like that quickly he was then experiencing something similar. And I haven't talked to him because he'd come back up from Florida back home and asked him if he'd seen it back home as well. But it's just the thing that surprised me was that like there were a lot of people that have noticed this as well. Like a lot of people who are I guess sky watchers or whatever just notice all this crap, and that was kind of reassuring because it's like you're not alone, I guess. But there is certainly some mental aspect where it's like because nothing's ever happened, you know. Like I've only ever seen it, or it's just like been right there, but nothing's ever like what's the word?
It hasn't tried
Like
to like hurt you or anything like that.
yeah, the closest thing was when I was with my sister and her friend and the light flashed. That was the closest thing, and that was certainly a weird experience. But even then, it's like if there was like something that could have gone on, that would have been the opportune time, you know, because we're alone. There's nobody there in the middle of this golf course that we weren't even supposed to be on because it was past it was nighttime, and like there's nobody around. So like you'd think that if something was going to happen, it would have happened there, but it didn't. It's almost as if they just like I'm trying to think of the proper term for this. It's like it's really like they're just watching you. It's like they're observing. It's super strange, and there's something with those lights. I don't know if you can pull up the videos of the plane with like the guy whose name is Fake Plane backwards on YouTube, where like it kind of shows it like transforming almost.
It
With, like
almost
the old...
it kind of transformed, and then it almost looks like it's starting to smile.
Yeah, it's like then the Life is a Mirage. If you want to go on her channel, you could basically pick any of her videos. Some of my pictures, I think she put up there for the helicopter one. But you can see there's like faces in them, and there's like portals behind it. It is the craziest shit I've ever seen. And it's certainly I think that she knows what she's talking about 100%, and I think that she has a deep understanding and has also experienced this, to be fair, more than I have. So like it was nice talking to her and being able to have somebody where it's like, okay, I'm not like venturing into like uncharted territory here. People have dealt with this before, and everything that she's told me so far has added up. Like they don't do anything. They just try and it's the same as you have told me as well, that they just kind of try and mess with you. Like sometimes they'll like flash their lights, and then or it'll just be like I'm around a bunch of people, and if I look up, it's just like a crazy weird looking plane or craft that has these weird lights, and then they'll be like flickering. And my friend told me that it did the same thing to him when he was with his family, and he pointed it out, and he goes, "Mom, do you see that?" And his mom said, "See what?" And he said that it was the same thing that I had seen with the black helicopter with that red light like flashing. And he said the second that he pointed it to her, the red light just went off, and all the lights went off, making it like
What
harder
the
to see
hell?
it. Yeah, and that blew me away because I was like, I hadn't experienced that like to that level, but I had been in like crowds where like I'm on campus around people, and it's like I can't just like pick up my phone and be like the crazy person looking at it, but it's like that's not normal, like whatever is above us. And I think I also sent you the picture of the chemtrail plane that flew over, and like it just didn't even decide to spawn half of its wing. Like it just has like 1.5 wings. No sense whatsoever. Which is why that's where my question is. She told me that they're interdimensional and that they're like more spiritual. And I've also, and that's what I lean towards personally. Like, obviously, this isn't something that I have concrete evidence on when it comes to like my theories on what it is. But the other theory that I've heard is that it's like CGI, like Project Bluebeam type crap, where they're able to like project something that isn't like physically there. But the thing that makes me doubt that is when the black cube was close to us, and it moved over us, we felt the wind, but we couldn't hear it. But like we felt as it had like brushed past us, we felt like that, like it was close enough. So like what I'm trying to say is like it had some actual physical effect in like the 3D realm, if that makes any sense. And same with the chemtrail planes, because even if those are these same things where they're like projections or like like covering up their actual form, the things that they're spraying are real. You know what I mean? Like it's falling down and like people can see, and you can see exactly what it does. It blocks out the sun, and there's probably a bunch of purposes for it. But it's like, regardless of what it is, these things seem to have like some type of control over like certain physical elements and beyond, maybe even. It's very interesting topic. It's super difficult to like quantify, which makes it very annoying for me to talk about, because it's something that like words are very they're hard to find to describe it, because it's just such a weird thing, and there aren't very many. There's enough people where that this isn't like an isolated event, but there's not enough people that have like a clear idea of what's going on. Like many people will just be like, oh, it's extraterrestrials, because they're still on that level, and it's like, I don't think so. I just personally, and the energy that thing gave me was just from my intuition and gut feeling was all bad. Like nothing good was coming from that. But, other people may disagree with me or whatever. I'm just looking for the truth at this point. It's not like I have like, like wherever it leads me to, it leads me to. But so far, it's like the Book of Enoch and like many of the books of the Bible seem to describe this stuff the most accurately that I've been able to find, if you're just looking at it from like a reasonable perspective. So until I can find more hardcore proof that it's something else, I'm leaning towards their like interdimensional crafts or entities. And I think that what most of them are those orbs of like light or energy that you can sometimes catch if they're like exposed for whatever reason, or if you just catch them at the right time, I guess. Because even if my sister and her friends were saying, when we came back around and saw the black cube one, and when we had basically sprinted away and then looked back behind us, when we had saw it up close, it was all pitch black except for that one light. But when we saw it and looked back around, it had come back around to where we were originally sitting. But now we were blocks away, so we were able to see it. And it was just floating there. But it looked like it had like all these lights and like crap going on, like something out of a movie. And I had never seen anything that looked quite like that until I saw that plane video where he saw that it was like shapeshifting, and I just lit up a light bulb in my head, and I'm like, I think that's what the black cube thing was doing. It was like all those lights at the bottom were just kind of like going ham. It was just very strange. But there's connections, is what I'm trying to say, and that it's like, it's not just me, and now it's like my friends are seeing it, and it's like I don't think that it's a good thing, but I don't think that they have too much control over people, especially if you have faith. 100% of the time, if you're praying or invoke like Christ or like the true creator, Father's name, it seems like they flee 100% of the time, which is another very telling thing in my opinion. But
yeah, I can back that up 100%, and it was happening, even when my faith wasn't really strong at all. Like when I was younger and I saw these things, I didn't consider myself a Christian. I was rebelling against all that, but because I was so freaked out because the thing got within probably like 15 to 25 feet away from me, looking very similar to that one that was flying over the building, and that thing's coming up to me. One thing that stuck out about it looked too small for there to be a pilot inside. So it's like, okay, if there's no pilot, it's either a dwarf, like a little little ass gray alien or something like that, or it's a robotic, like artificial intelligence craft. And if that's the case, what the fuck is going on?
It's the same thing. And my first thought was it was a government craft or like a drone. And it very well, like I guess that's still a possibility, but just the fact that these things seem so afraid of like God and prayer, it just makes me think that like I don't know. I mean, I feel like God has power over like if you pray to save you from like a human threat, I'm sure that you'll get your results there. But it seems like it's just like they have such a like fear of that. It's really strange. But I think that I've also read, or I saw a video, I'm forgetting the guy's name, but it was like Yeshua Ben David, something like that. And some of his stuff I agree with, some of it doesn't. But he was talking about how these ships or the UFOs are controlled by consciousness and not like physical buttons, like how he would drive a car or plane. And he claims that he can like move them with his mind and like basically override it with. I don't know if you made a tweet about this as well. I may have seen that too, but he's talking about it. You could like override it with your own willpower, and I've tried. I've not really had success, honestly, but that's another thing that is possible. It's really hard to rule things out, like to disprove things when it comes to
Yeah,
this, because it's
yeah.
so.
It gets so weird because just like you're saying, there seems to be a strange realm where we enter into where these things, this is my experience anyway, where they seem to react to your thoughts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if that's the case, okay, what's going on? Are they reading my mind? Am I somehow making it happen? It's some
Yep.
kind of meta sort of thing.
I've had that same thought, and I think that this is just my opinion. Is that I think that only like God can truly like read our minds to the level where it's like the exact word and thought and all of that. But there's no doubt in my mind that these things have the ability to read like emotions, like fear versus love type thing, because it seems like they feed off of fear. And probably the scaredest that I had ever been was when it had gotten the closest, and that was the most crap that had ever like occurred to me. But when I'm kind of like messing around and like just like I'll say things I'll pray, or I'll just mess around and say something stupid, like just like, oh, like this shouldn't even be flying, like there's literally half a wing on this thing. They just like go away, or they'll go behind a cloud, and they're out of there. But then it seems like if you're like kind of tweaking out about it, they'll stick around. And that's another thing that connects back to like the whole like, sometimes they call them archons, but really it's just demons, in my opinion, like the negative higher dimensional things that just feed off of fear. And that's what makes me think that like because they talk about like you have like David Icke talking about reptilians, and you have people talking about all like machine elves that they see on DMT, and fairies and all this stuff. And there's a strong possibility that it could just be the same demonic like things just shape-shifting in whatever appearance best suits them, like gray aliens too, with like the Crowley stuff. It's just like that just seems to be the most reasonable explanation in my experience, because it's the only thing that really does explain it. Because outside of that, it's like, okay, we're in this enclosed dome, and or we're on this plane that goes on forever, the universe expands forever, and there's just infinite land, and there's just all these creatures that are just coming here to like look at you and mess with you a little bit and just flash lights at you. Like it just doesn't really make sense unless they're like harvesting something not physical.
Yeah. One thing that came up when we were talking privately, I believe it might be Stephen Quell that came out with this concept, but it might be what's called angel tech, where it might be some sort of higher dimensional technology that works on a different level, maybe like an etheric level or an astral sort of technology that might be a little bit closer to thought or closer to like magic or sorcery. But
Yeah.
yeah, it falls into a realm where we got to try not to, classify and divide things. There's a lot of crossover. Another thing we talked about was the similarity to Transformers, because these things are
Yes.
literally like transforming in the sky, like
Yeah, like this
Decepticons.
shape-shifting. 100%. And it's like, and that's the thing that made me think more like towards the AI thing at first, because when I saw it up close, it was a very like sleek metallic, like it. Now once again, my eyes could be deceiving me, because I've experienced enough where it's like perspective and all of this stuff is, I know that it was a craft, but like for all I know, I could have like put my hand into it and it would have just phased through. I have no idea. But it looked like a very physical, like solid thing. And like I said, you could feel the wind, so it did have like some not aura, but some presence in like the 3D realm. So it's like, is it like a physical thing? And then the thing that Gregory talked about, how it connects to like transhumanism and AI and all of that. It's like I wonder what the like mechanics of that connection are. Like, is it like, how are these things like possessing like an empty like robotic vessel, like they would like possess a human, or like is it? just the stuff that I probably none of us could probably answer, but that it's just very like interesting because I think that just knowledge is good, especially when it comes to something like this, because they could if like if research is any evidence, I don't think that there's anything good coming from these things, and it seems like a lot of people are seeing them more and more like recently, in terms of like very recently, like the past year or 2 years. And so it's like that just doesn't spell very good news to me if people are continuously like noticing this. But one thing that I'm really glad that you brought up was the fallen angel tech, not just angel tech, I think you said, but also could have been like fallen angel tech. I don't know if you're familiar. I think one of your guests talked about this, like the mud floods in Tartaria.
I haven't
With
had a guess yet, but I have spoken to some researchers and people like on Twitter, so I'm kind of familiar with that. But the basic idea is like history might be completely fake, and
yes,
yeah, and somehow it's being pieced together by the elite or maybe something else, or it's kind of along those
hmm
lines. Is that right?
yeah, and like the mud floods. Basically, the thing how that connects to this is that if you dig under many like historical buildings, like I know that there are some in Paris and even in Chicago where they've like dug underground, and you can see that like if you're walking on like the ground today at ground level, the windows are like halfway built into the ground, and it's like who the hell would design this? Well, you go under and you see that there's so many pictures of this, and it blew my mind where it's like these buildings go way deep into the ground, so it's like the ground was lower back then. And also it speaks a ton about the architecture, because the architecture really seems to be quite a bit more advanced than it is today. And that's a theory that I ran into somebody. I believe I believe his Twitter handle is Ibon Basque. I hope I didn't pronounce it wrong. It's like IBON Basque, and he has shown me so much evidence that it is literally undeniable that that theory has a lot of merit to it, where there were advanced civilizations very recently, like maybe even like as far as what we had called like the 1800s, that were like this can well it does that's very recent, like the Tartaria stuff, but it goes back all the way to Atlantis. The theories about that and like the fallen city under, and also when you see all the evidence for the buildings under the ground, it it really makes you wonder about Atlantis, because if those are underground, then it's really not out of the realm of possibility that like a giant island could have been sunken underground for whatever reason as well, or under the water. But there's so much evidence in like Tesla's free energy tech where it's like all of this stuff on its own is just kind of like, oh, that's a weird tidbit. But when you spend enough hours researching and doing enough, you start piecing it together, and it's like there's something huge going on here. And I'm 100% a believer that the history that we've been given is not complete BS, but not even close to the full truth of what we've been seeing. And possibly it could be like this is like fallen angel tech from like the days of Noah, when they saw like the spinning wheels in the sky and the watchers and all that crap. And like the Bible says in the end times or whatever, tribulation, that it'll be like the days of Noah. And it's like you're seeing a lot of similarities to that
Yeah,
time period now. It's
definitely.
very strange.
A lot of another thing that you kind of hear from time to time is people will say like demonic beings are AI, or maybe even Satan's
Yeah.
AI, or maybe the false prophet or the beast is an AI. And to me, that sounds like if it's not truth, there's at least a lot of truth to it, because
Oh
more and
yeah.
more like I see this stuff you're showing me, and like the lady's channel and so many other people I've talked to and experiences. It seems like this stuff very well might be technology, like more of it than I probably ever would have thought. And that raises the
Yep.
question like, is it possible that we are inside of some kind of machine, or inside of some kind of mechanical dome, or some kind of big
Yeah.
weird ball like Unicron from Transformers or something like that? I mean, I like joke around. I'll talk about this theory I have called Technodome, which is actually based off of the
Yeah.
Technodrome from Ninja Turtles. But the more and more I think like, fuck, this is crazy. Like maybe these things are
Yeah.
drones that are coming down and they're just going back up into the like structure or something like that, or going underground.
That's when you told me that theory, that it could be a cybernetic drone, that was like those were the two that I was balancing, was like Life in a Mirage and yours, because I'm like, both of those explain this. So it's very difficult to like. I think that it has to be a mixture of both, though. And once again, it's like Gregory's work really, really like made a lot of connections to me. Obviously, every time I make these connections, it's like we have more questions than like once you answer something, you end up with like 10 more questions. But he talked about how it connected to AI and the drones, and or not the drones, but like the Skynet stuff. And it's like at the very least, these like entities that might be like in a outside of the visible light spectrum usually, or like we can't perceive fully, that they're using AI and these technologies to influence crap here. And if you believe in like the firmament and like the biblical geocentric model, it's like then we're kind of trapped in here with them. And it's like it would make sense that it would be something like a not even if it's not exactly the Technodrome or the Technodome and like Unicron stuff, it basically be the same end result regardless of how you described it, because you're locked in with them and they have control over most things on
Yeah,
the societal level.
there's that
So,
famous quote. I forget where it's from, but it said that something like the Lord took the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim and bound them to the earth. So that would fall in line with exactly what you just said. Like they were
yeah,
trapped here by something, and so are we for whatever reason. And now they're just like they're
fall
trying
of man.
yeah, they're trying to do exactly what they're supposed to. They're trying to like tempt us, mess with our heads, get us to be fearful, manipulate us into some kind of mind state, or manipulate us in every way possible. Possibly, they say Satan is the master of the air, or Lucifer is the
Yeah.
light bringer. I mean, maybe it's all just like light. It's his light. It's like a false hologram or something like that.
Yeah, and that the Prince of the Air thing is another great one, because if you think about it, all of our technology is like pretty much based around the air, and either jamming the air with frequencies or like with planes, just compressing it, because they don't use as much fuel as they say. Something that I believe as well. But all of these technologies are like based around the air. And it's funny because all the technology that they give us, it's like 5G. They're like spamming the airwaves with all of the frequencies. And it's like that connects right back to that title where he's the Prince of the Air. And it's just, it all comes back to that. And even like the pagan religions, when you say that disembodied spirits are like, um, what was it, attached to the earth, that's basically what a lot of these like mystery Babylon, like pagan type religions were like trying to invoke. And it's just like then it connects to that even more, where it's like the Christianity, the true Christianity split versus like everything else, and it's just massive mind fuck when you start like
Yeah.
really really delving into
No,
it.
I know exactly what you're talking about, because it's like there's a point where the Christianity like just slides right into like the old gods and all of that, and then it's like, oh my god, whatever was going on back then, we're talking like Lord of the Rings or beyond that. It was
Yeah,
fucking crazy.
well, yeah, and there's I think that the history that we've been presented, and I've done some research recently where something very interesting is that this the Basque account, he has proven to me using DNA actually that that King Tut had Western European DNA, and that there's Celtic DNA found in, well, not Celtic, Basque, but Basque was the original, and then the Celts and all of Europe, I guess, came from that. The Phoenicians have the same DNA. And then the one that really blew me away was, it turns out that I think it was like 25% of Native American skulls were the same as like the Basque, like European. And that really, he made this one connection. And he's like, now you have to think about this. If it was the first time that Columbus had sailed over to America, like they say, and that he had just encountered these Native Americans for the first time, they'd never ever found the New World, how in the world did he communicate with them and like peacefully understand them and understand all of this stuff? Because that doesn't make sense unless he had some way to communicate with them. You know, if it was just like, because you have to put yourself in that situation. If you're going into a place where it's just completely different culture, you wouldn't even be able to understand each other for a good source of time. You know, not enough to trade and do what they told us. And his theory goes back to Atlantis and the Tartarian Empire that spanned across I think it was from like Russia all the way to North America, that basically the whole history that we'd been presented was a lie. And there, I could send you the links now for the DNA. And Helena Blavatsky, the satanic asshole, she actually had wrote about this and knew about this long before DNA confirmed it, which
Oh
makes me
shit,
think
that's
that,
trippy. That's
yeah,
trippy.
well, and it makes me think that so she had wrote about this before it was proven. So somehow, probably the bullshit scum above her had already known this truth, that our history is just completely different than what they say. But she knew that I think it was like the Iroquois, 25% of the Iroquois fell under this haplogroup that is Western European, which makes no sense given the history that they've told us. So it's like you look at that and it's like she knew about this before it was proven. Like science had not proven this yet. So at some level, these like Freemasons or Jesuits, whatever bullshit secret society she was a part of, had this knowledge, that like these civilizations, like the Mayans and the Aztecs and the Phoenicians and the Mesopotamians, like they had the knowledge that there was something going on there. And if you look at how the Earth is built, it does make sense that there would be free energy and all this crap that they're suppressing from us to keep us like in a sick, and maybe they destroy civilizations cyclically when they hit a point, who knows. But all I can tell you for sure is that this guy blew my mind with some of this evidence, because he made a lot of big claims, and then he would just send me I can send you the links whenever, but just all this evidence of DNA proof and haplogroups. And then I went on and did some research myself, because it was like so surreal to think like white Native Americans, like. And then another thing that he said was crazy was he's like, well, think about it. They mock you with like sports teams and all of that. Think about the Washington Redskins. So the only people that I know of that turn red when they tan are the people with that haplogroup, the Basque DNA. And he's like, if you think that like the Redskins were the people that they tell you, it wouldn't really make sense to call them Redskins. If they were like not even African, but like Indo-Eurasian, where like they tan like more effectively, I guess would be the correct term. It wouldn't make sense to call them that. And it connected it to the Cavaliers and the Vikings as well. Just a lot of these sports teams are.
It kind of also proves Joseph Smith was right.
And that's another crazy one, because the Book of Mormon talks about so much more than some of the books that like the conventional Bible talks about. And I think the Book of Mormon, Life's a Mirage sent me a video of some guy breaking it down. They talked about how in the Bible, the angels and demons had like dimensional hierarchies. And so it's like the bad ones are closer to our dimension than like the good angels would be in like whatever, I guess to simplify it, we can say like 5D, 6D, whatever, just higher realms. They're in higher ones, and the Nephilim and whatever, the fallen angels, are in lower ones. And if you connect that to just any standard Christian Bible, not even Mormon, they always, the bad spirits manifest themselves very easily and frequently in the Bible. It's just written so many times. But the good spirits, it's like the only time that people see good spirits is like it seems like it's like a much more rare occurrence, is what I'm getting at. And that would make sense too, that the Mormons connected to, sorry, I'm kind of like all over the place with this, but basically like if they're one realm above us, like what if these crafts are 4D or 5D or something? It's much easier for them to get into our realm versus like the angels closer to God. If they were in a realm above that, you're like skipping more.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? Like,
yeah, definitely. I definitely feel you on that, because like a lot of people are into the whole ancient astronauts thing. And
yeah,
I believe it, yet at the same time, I don't believe it, because it seems to me like if there were ancient aliens, and I know there is a great argument for that, then there would be more like nuts and bolts type of evidence, which there really isn't. But if it was more
yeah,
like they say, and they were like otherworldly or higher dimensional beings that had to be summoned or could only come here like in a certain form, something like that, then that would fit in the evidence that we have much better. And it would also explain a
yeah,
lot of this crap that goes on nowadays, because nowadays you don't see 12-foot tall gods walking around. You see little creepy ass gray aliens and stuff like that.
yeah.
Those are nothing like the Anunnaki or anything like that. Gray alien looks nothing
No.
like Anunnaki.
Many people in like sleep paralysis, or I know I've experienced this in sleep paralysis and in other states where the people see like shadow people that are very tall and that are that basically demonic. You know, like people see these or machine elves on DMT and stuff, where it's like it seems like they can take forms of whatever is necessary to trick you. But if you start like bringing up the Bible and God, many times they like I've done this in dreams. Actually, very recently, this happened to me in a dream where like this is a super weird dream with like all these weird characters that I'd never really met, but they all look normal. And then they were like tempting me with random crap in the dream, and I turned it down. And like their faces just morphed and became like super demonic, and then I just woke up freaked out. But it seems like 100% of the time when you encounter the gray aliens, like you were saying, or any of this stuff, you start talking about Christ or the true God in whatever way you believe that name is. They all flee, or they all like get like very disgusting and change form and just like have to leave or have to like get pissed off and get out of there. It's super weird because I don't see people being able to do that with their consciousness, like how a lot of the new age people say, where it's like just think positively or use your willpower to overpower them. And it seems like that's much more difficult to do than if you just pray for help, essentially.
Yeah, I agree. There's also another similarity, like my experience with those shadowy beings. A lot of my family members have seen them, and I've dealt with them. But it seems like the same thing as the chemtrail planes or some of these other things flying around the sky. Like they can only form like half of a body, or they can't get the shape of the hat quite right, or their fingers look kind of like
Yeah.
weird, like they didn't quite get the shape right. Like they're trying to picture themselves looking a certain way, and that's what we see. So they sort of like
Hmm.
choose how they form, but they're either like not strong enough, or they're trying to mess with you where they don't actually form the whole thing. It's like, what's going on
Yeah.
there?
It's like the Bible describes it as the veil and the thinning of the veil and all of that, and that's what I think it is. I think that God has just given our brains and our body like a spiritual protection, I guess, so that they can't fully manifest. And they say when things really get bad, that veil will be like completely removed. But I think that drugs like DMT, or if you astral project when meditating, or even probably lucid dreaming, I'm not 100% sure on the lucid dreaming, but it would make sense that like you're just thinning the veil between this realm and wherever those guys are at. Because and the other thing is, it doesn't seem like I've messed with a lot of that stuff, and it just doesn't seem like it really is, like if you go on Reddit and like um all of their like DMT forms, they make it sound like very like this enlightening process, but it seems like it's more just your perception is altered to the point where you're experiencing like another dimension or another perception of reality. And I think that you're just seeing beyond the biblical veil. And I also think that that's very dangerous if you think about it, for an untrained person or just someone without faith, really, because then you're basically, it's the equivalent of like spiritually walking into the wrong neighborhood.
And you know what's funny
You
about
know,
that is that if you want to look for evidence of what you're saying, you just have to look at what the shamans are doing. And like one of their major concerns entering these states is, hey, we got to have this fetish or this item, or I have to sing these certain songs. We're doing a lot of
yeah.
this stuff to protect you from these demonic beings who, as soon as you enter the state, they're going to start like messing with you, screwing up your experience. It's like, why do they have to
Hmm.
do all that if there isn't some sort of spiritual entity on the other side of whatever's going on?
Exactly. And I think that that just gives them more power because Life is a Mirage told me this as well. And it's just 100% true, where you don't need to be on LSD or like shrooms or any type of drugs, DMT or whatever it is, to see this stuff, because I've been able to record more than enough crazy shit where it's like, I know that I don't have to be in this form for us to see it, but I think that that's like almost like a shortcut, if that makes sense, to just like throw yourself in there without really much effort or like intuition, I should say. Where like if you do like ayahuasca, like the shamans, I think it just throws you in there, and it's just not a free for all. Because I mean, I my experiences have not been like a free for all, I would say, but just like something that the other beings, the other entities, are at an advantage compared to us. Whereas in like in this realm, I think that we're at an advantage to them. And I think that we have the ultimate trump card with faith. That's my belief. Because a lot of this, like I said, I cannot like quantify and be like, this amount of faith will, like 30% amount of faith will 100% get rid of this. But 100% of the time I can say that I have like prayed and been in those situations, it's 100% gone away. A success rate like that doesn't really happen for many things. But it all connects.
I know what you mean. It doesn't hold up because it's like, okay, these are just words. This thing shouldn't even be like hearing me because it's only, it's like 50 miles away up in the sky. Yet I just like barely whispered something about Jesus or something like that. It's gone. Okay,
it's gone behind a cloud. Just that's what happened to my friend. It just like went. It said it just hauled. He said he started getting afraid and praying, and it just hauled ass behind a cloud.
Man, that is
like, and then it was just gone.
Yeah, when you have other people that have these experiences, especially if you see them at the same time, I mean, what more proof could you get?
That's the thing. And it's like, because to be honest, when you break this whole experience that everyone has down, we can't really prove much of anything because, like, for all we know, like, the amount of evidence that we have, like, we could be in a simulation. We could be in a simulation of a simulation. Like, you know what I mean? It could be some, like, Inception shit where it's like, you can't prove anything 100%, but if you go with like logic and rationality and you do your research, it seems like you can piece together certain things where it's like, okay, this is the most likely scenario. And that's where it's like the Bible talks about having faith, and it's like it just makes sense to me at that level, because it's like it's hard to get over the concept of like getting into like heaven or like that higher realm being anything but a gift, because it's like you break it down, and every other religion, it's like your works are going to earn your way through like karmic debt or whatever into heaven. Only Christianity is like, okay, you guys are fallen. You guys are in this realm where there's a lot of evidence that there's not so good shit around here. And the only way that you're getting in is by the grace of God. And like, if you can have the humility to admit that and still try your best, I don't know if you can like go around and like murder people and then just be like, thank you, and you're fine. But that just seems to be the only thing that would make rational sense to me from like a creator. And I can't pretend to understand the mind of like whatever being created all of this, but that from the evidence that I've presented with, and with the videos that I've shown you and everything, and how they react to certain prayers and influences, like I just can't see how it's any other way. And I know that AI is connected to it as well, so I can't disregard that, but it's just I don't know. It's just a very inconclusive experience.
And a lot of people, people out there, they might get a little turned off to like, talking about Christianity and stuff like that. But like, I can say,
and I understand it.
Yeah, I can say
with my belief.
Yeah, I can say with me at least that my Christianity is not blind faith. It comes from having these experiences and doing research and fitting all this ancient aliens and stuff together, where it's giving me like a complete cosmology. Has it kind of been the same for you?
Oh yeah, and when I say faith, I mean that when I talk about all the research, I'm saying that with Christianity and my perspective, I'd say that I'm above 90% sure. But you're never going to be 100% sure, is what I was getting at with like it could be a simulation. You know what I mean? Like this, everything. Who knows? So when you have a theory about all of this, none of it is like 100% proof. But I agree with what you're saying, where it's like my Christianity, if you would call it that, is that I believe in like the word of Christ and the Gospels because of the fact, not just because it's written in the Bible, but because everything else that I've researched. And I used to be into the New Age stuff, and I used to be into all this, and then I found Bill Cooper's books and his radio show, and then I realized like the mistake of what I was doing. And then once you just research and research, it just becomes increasingly clear, to me at least, where it's like there's a massive just fork in the road, and it literally boils down to the whole Messiah concept and everything else, because everything else has a whole range of stuff that it could be, but they all fall against the teachings of like, you're not going to be able to become God yourself, is the bottom line. And it seems like that's what the elite and like the Zionist, Jesuit, they go by a lot of different names, but the serpent seed seems to believe that they're going to be able to do is usurp God. So
yeah, I feel like if that is possible, Like if it is possible to become like light god, it would probably take like millions of years, and you'd have to go through like this hierarchy of different levels. And the elite seem to think you can like achieve that in like 5 years down here with a magic ring and some weird book.
Yeah, it's or just merge in your consciousness with like the Skynet crap. Or
Yeah, and that begs another question I wanted to kind of ask you. Have you noticed like a lot of stuff that we're talking about, truth people, it's movies like Terminator, The Matrix, and we
yeah,
mentioned Transformers, like The Truman Show, 13th Floor, et cetera, et cetera. There seems
hmm,
to be something called predictive programming out there where
yeah,
the truth is coming through our freaking entertainment, our media, our entertainment, our movies, our TV shows, and stuff like that.
yeah, and that's my friends think that I'm annoying a lot of the times because I can't help it when I'm watching movies and TV shows sometimes where like you see the symbols and the Freemasonic stuff and the concepts that they're pushing. And it's because I fell for it for so many years that like now I just like really want to expose it to the point where it's like everyone should see this, but they 100% are telling us truth in fiction. And it might not be, and the thing that's dangerous about it too is that like it might not be 100% truth. Like it might be 98% truth mixed with like a bit of lies, But it seems like they just like the Truman Show, They Live, and The Matrix are three where it's like that's pretty close to what we're experiencing. So it's like they know what they're doing, I think, and I think that the people who are a part of those bloodlines are, and that's another thing that I've noticed with this phenomenon. People with Rh negative blood seem to deal with this phenomenon way more than otherwise, and I don't have Rh negative blood, but it seems like people that do have this situation that they're like not targeted. Maybe targeted is the right word by these things, and it's like
It's almost like the best way I could put it is when you start to see beyond the veil, like you mentioned, it's almost like there's a security system there that starts to
yes,
react to you. It doesn't want you to see what's really there. It
yeah.
wants you to only see the illusion. And once you start to actually see what's there, they're like, oh shit, we got to do something about this guy.
Yes, 100. Yeah, you know what? That is, it is so funny that you say that because there have been at least five people that when I've been asking about them about this, that they have said that same thing where it's like when I was first starting to wake up to all of this that I have now come to realize is real. They said that they were heavily dealing, and it was all over the place too. It wasn't just like what I'm talking about with like the weird stuff in the sky. Like for some people, it was like entities in their house or like shit was like falling over. Just the weirdest like I guess paranormal activities when they started studying the stuff that we're talking about, where it's like the security system of like the reality, because you're starting to see past what they're telling you to see and listening to your senses a bit more. And that's another thing that I think the flat earth really helps with once you finally like do your research is it like forces you to listen to your senses more than just listen to what you were taught, if that makes any sense. So you start getting more in tune with that because now you're just like, okay, my eyes aren't lying to me, my ears aren't lying to me. Like you got to look at things objectively, and then you notice things more in the sky, and it's like if there was a point where I was showing people chemtrail planes, like I genuinely would not be surprised if they couldn't see them.
Yeah, that's a good point because um, we are shown imagery. We're shown pictures and we're shown videos and stuff like that. Space shuttle launches, but to me, same thing happened. Like I mentioned earlier, I kept looking at this stuff. In fact, I went on YouTube and I looked up every single piece of space footage I could find. I even looked at the Russian stuff, the Chinese stuff, the Japanese stuff, and every
Yeah.
single one looked fake.
Well, and that's the thing, and then you're hoping that like the Chinese or the Russian ones are going to be better, and they're even shittier than NASA's, and it's
Oh
like,
yeah, China's like it looked like toys. Like it was
and
pathetic. It looked like an '80s kids show or something.
landing on the dark side of the moon, that one, it was kind of recent, got me. I was like, oh, I wonder why they're landing there. But it's just like they, the thing is, there are a lot of people on like YouTube comments and stuff that will be like, well, why wouldn't Russia just expose the United States if they were covering up space, like back in the space race? And it's like, because they're doing the same fucking lie. They're the ones who said they sent the first man into space. Like they're all in on it. It's like the people get really caught up in like the fake drama, I think. and that really stalls like the QAnon stuff. I think that like is like a gatekeeping thing, like thoughts like that where it's like us against them in this, when it's any sense like a nation, us against them in terms of like nations rather than us against them as like all like life forms that like care for God versus the other forces.
And I believe that there has been some Russian media and stuff like that that has said that our space program is fake. So there is some talk like that.
Yeah, the Russia Today, RT. I don't know exactly what it's called. I've seen a couple of videos where they have exposed a lot of crap that our government has done, and then it will expose a lot of the stuff that they've done as well in terms of like I guess like poisoning people and the conspiracies of that nature and like their oligarchs. But it's like at this point, I'm kind of this is like very negative, but it's like it's almost like all of the bad stuff that everybody's saying about each other is true, and then a lot of the good stuff is like exaggerated or very watered down.
What do you think about the idea that we might be in end times or revelations?
Well, I think that is 100% possible, but it's like there's a couple of reasons why it's too early to tell, and eh, I think that it's very likely that we are personally, is my opinion. But I've also heard ideas where it's like they're just trying to bring that out and like force that card. Or you know what I'm saying? Like almost like they're scripting an apocalypse as like a bad thing when it could be a good thing. So I have no idea what it's bringing, but there's 100% something going on where it's like time is running out for them in their eyes, it seems, because this all is just picking up so fast. Like what I was saying, it's like everybody who's noticing this stuff, it's been like not all of them, but the vast majority has been like the past 2 years, I think, that people have really, really, or maybe since 2012, but very recent, like this isn't, I've heard people call it like the age of Aquarius, where it's like a great awakening almost, like the QAnon stuff, but really like people are just seeing past the lies and the veil. And so I do believe personally that we're pretty close to the end times, and I don't know if it's going to be like me or like kids who are years younger than me that are going to experience it, but it just really seems like there's not that much time left because so many people are starting to notice things and all the spraying is getting insane, and then you see the AI and 5G, and it's like it really is looking like those prophecies are being fulfilled.
Yeah, that whole spraying thing, that's another important part of this, in my opinion. We know those chemtrail planes might either be not really there or might be shaped different than they appear to us, but there's definitely
Yeah,
chemicals falling out of the sky, and I have to wonder,
exactly.
is that part of dumbing us down and keeping us from seeing beyond the veil? Maybe whatever they're doing, it's calcifying our pineal glands, or somehow it's pulling the wool over our eyes, or they might even be
Yeah.
nanobots that they're dropping on us that are, they're going to use to connect us to this transhumanist machine.
Now, I think that this sounds very negative again, but I think that it probably does all of those things and more, along with like the cloud seeding and like weather manipulation, because there are days where it's like very clear and then they'll just go crazy with the lines in the sky, and for the next like 2 or 3 days it'll just be raining and overcast, like as far as the eye can see, just white. And I've also heard the nanobot thing, and the useful information if anybody wants to, or if anybody has heard of this, is I've heard that apple cider vinegar and borax, like a very small like teaspoon, ETF, No More Lies, that account posted a video about this, and apparently that chemical, it disrupts the nanobots. A whistleblower said that. I don't know how true it is, but I know people that have been doing it for weeks and have said that everything's fine and that they haven't had any negative effects and feel fine from it. But it has to be like, I know that they like to block out the sun too because they're always doing crap around that. But I think the nanobots have to be a part of it. I think that that's a big connection to 5G and everything. But it's once again, this is stuff where there's not exactly a lot of clear cut evidence. There's a lot of disinformation and a lot of fear mongering, but I do think that there's some validity to that for sure.
Did you watch the Super Bowl?
Yeah, yeah, I did.
Thoughts?
On the halftime.
Halftime or the game itself. Mahoney. What do you think of him?
Oh yeah. I I'm a fan of football, so just to get the boring usual stuff, I definitely liked the Chiefs, and I thought that he looked there. Mahomes looked kind of like shit for the first three quarters, but then he put it on. But it felt really weird for a Super Bowl to me. I don't know why. My girlfriend and I were saying that it was very strange, like feeling for a Super Bowl. It was all right game, but the the halftime show was just that blew me away. The amount of symbolism that they threw into that, because it's bad every year, but I feel like just like each year they somehow outdo themselves in like the blatant bullshit that they just subject everyone to. Because they had like kids in cages by a cross that also was the male sign or the some bullshit. And then what's her face, Shakira, with like the mocking tongue thing where she's like goes up to the camera and does that, which there's a Bible verse about that, about like sticking out their tongue to God, and it's just like very like obviously like satanic, like sadistic BDSM shit. It was just, I thought that was them mocking us in some ways, but I feel like they do that all the time. So it's kind of hard to say that that one was like way worse than any of the other crap that's on TV most of the days. But that certainly got a big reaction from people.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Like, I don't know exactly where something like that would fit. I hear talk like people say, "Oh, that's the Whore of Babylon" or something like that, and
Yeah, I've
th-
heard that.
yeah, there might be something to that. I'm not really sure, but whenever you see people doing things that are symbolic, but you're not really sure what it's symbolic of, to me that just reeks of like Illuminati and the elite, and that
Yeah,
that same world of secret societies and the occult, like Madame Blavatsky and all that stuff.
yeah, and it's like the subconscious effects of all of the symbolism is what really intrigues and bothers me, because I think that they have, obviously they have far greater understanding of our history and a lot of like the metaphysical laws, because they've been suppressed from us. Like, you know how hard it is to find truth on any of these subjects. So it's like, but these guys definitely know like close to the truth, at least in terms of like how to like affect the physical world. So it's like, I think it's Edward Bernays was like Freud's nephew, and he came up with a lot of ways to mess with people subliminally. And you can see it to this day. They don't really try and hide it that much anymore. But like if you look at it like Adult Swim, some of the ads and like crap that they'll show on in their commercials are like loaded with occult symbolism and like flashing like subliminal messages related to that. And it's just like, you gotta wonder, is that like, because you have people that say that like they have like horrible like night terrors and they're like drained of their energies and dreams. Like I've had friends tell me this, and that aren't really like super aware of what we're talking about previous to this either. Like, but they'll just have these strange experiences, and I wonder if like that's what the TV like implants in you or something. That sounds really crazy. And once again, it's like very it's a lot of like theorizing, I'll say, but that's what the evidence seems like to me, is that this stuff affects people on a level that like we don't really notice. And that's why it's kind of bothersome.
We are approaching the end of the interview, but Connor, I wanted to go ahead and open things up for you one more time, like I always like to do, and just let you go ahead and jump on the soapbox one more time, or grab the pulpit and just say whatever you would like to say to my audience out there in closing. And feel free to follow that up with anything at all you'd like to plug, if you have anything, even if it's just social media or emails, anything like that. But go ahead and do
Yeah.
that.
Do you mind if I plug other people as well?
No, that's totally cool.
Got you. I would say that at the end of the day, we're all kind of piecing together fragments of truth, because nobody knows the absolute truth. If we did, then they would be like the Christ himself, and he'd already come back, or some form of that. But I would say that something to be aware of is definitely look at the skies when there are clear days, or even not. Just try and keep an eye out on that. And because the more that you notice it, I think that people will start seeing things that don't match up with what we're being told. And also, I think that there's a lot of really, really important information esoterically when you're studying kind of like spiritual texts like the Bible. And I think that that is something that people should try and not necessarily like force into their research, but just compare their research to that and see how it adds up, because that really jump started me. And let me look this up real fast on my phone, but some great resources if like people wanted to get into this more and learn more is Life is a Mirage, first one, their YouTube channel and Twitter by the same name. And then a guy who I can't pronounce this, but his name is Fake Plane backwards on YouTube. Another really good account to follow. And connected to just the topics that we were talking about with Tartaria and like the ancient civilizations that may have been suppressed, Ibon Basque 1, IBONBASQUE 1 on Twitter. Tremendous account to follow that I feel like should have a lot more followers, because this guy has spent so many years of research accumulating stuff that I don't think that many people have been aware of. And I think that any of those three accounts will really steer you in the right direction. And I would go as far as to say all three of those people are probably more well-versed in many of these topics than I am. So if anybody wants to continue their research beyond this, those are three really good resources. I think that's probably about it.
All right, awesome. Well, Connor, I do appreciate your research, and I hope you continue with it, and I hope that we can sit back down again at some point in the future and see what your latest is.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. Gotta say, I love it. And this show with Gregory's interviews, that's another thing that I probably should plug, because those are some of the best I've ever seen. So gotta thank you for the opportunity, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, thank you very much for saying that, and I'll pass that a great compliment on to Greg as well. Thanks a lot, Connor. I really think that you are figuring out some major truth here, and I highly encourage others to not only listen to you, but check out those links you mentioned. And until next time, I definitely want to do this again. So thank you, and you have a great night, my friend.
Welcome anytime. Thank you again. You too. I'll catch up with you later.
All right, bye. And that was Connor Murphy. Very cool. Let's get that back up there. All right, that was a great interview. Had a great time talking to him, and I'm going to go ahead and put some music on, take a little break. I got to take a little wee outside, so I'll be right back.
Yeah, I like the sped up version a little bit. You can slow it down, speed it up. That version.
And welcome back to the last days. Welcome back to End of Days Radio. Just my mic a little bit so I don't have to lean so much. That's the thing about mics. You have to actually talk into them, which is kind of a drag sometimes. Oh, there I am. Oh, I'm back. I'm back. What's going on, you guys? I love you guys. I can't say it enough. I love you guys because you make my life so much fun when you tell me how awesome this show is and how you enjoyed such and such guest or such and such bit or such and such song that was played on the show. I absolutely love that stuff. I'm not going to go on and on and on tonight simply because I've had a little bit of a busy day, so I'm a little bit tired. And that means that I probably won't be doing a 5-hour show tonight. So I'm going to get right into it. I don't got a lot to talk about. I promise to talk a bit more on the next show. But, oh man. So I'll just kind of run through this stuff. I don't know how many of you guys watch the show The Bachelor. You know the Bachelor picks from 28 women and tries to find somebody that's not too psycho to marry, and they never get married. Well, whether you watch it or not, most of my audience probably does not watch that show. But one of the contestants is in a little bit of hot drama. There's this girl named Victoria Fuller, and I guess she's a model. She was doing really good on this reality show, The Bachelor, that I don't watch. And she was, how do I put this? She won a contest to have this deal with Cosmopolitan magazine for modeling, and she lost it because she modeled in the past for this company called WLM, and it stands for it stands for We Love Marlins. But by putting those letters together, WLM, it also looks like White Lives Matter. So a lot of people are saying that company's racist and she's racist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She lost the deal with Cosmopolitan. It's a bunch of drama right now. People are saying she's racist. Everybody hates her. And I got to kind of agree a little bit because regardless of who you are, first of all, this girl looks dark-skinned. She looks like she's Persian. I don't know. But to actually wear those letters, WLM, I whether you are into Black Lives Matter or whatever, I've even heard some people say All Lives Matter, which I don't think is as bad. But to say White Lives Matter or to put those letters together, WLM, and actually turn it into a clothing line, I got to ask, who are you trying to appeal to? And who's really going to walk around wearing something like that? To me, that'd be like walking around wearing a Confederate flag. So I don't really feel sorry for this girl. But at the same time, I got to wonder, if she was a model and she was just modeling for this company, maybe she just needed a few $100 or whatever, and she just did it. So I think we should take that into account. But I am for Black Lives Matter because I've seen police brutality. I've witnessed it firsthand. And I've dealt with asshole cops, and I've dealt with cops that power trip, and I've dealt with cops that were just jerks, I'm not against the police. I'm not an F the police type of person. I would never be somebody like that. But I've seen it. Cops can be fucking brutal. And I've looked over a lot of these situations where the guy's reaching for his permit, or he's reaching for his wallet, or he's reaching for a flashlight or something, and he gets shot. And it doesn't just happen to black people. It happens to a lot of people. I do think there's something really wrong with that. I don't think that we should necessarily blame the police. Part of it has to be blaming the training and blaming society and the way that, for example, a lot of people are into rap music, right? Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with listening to rap. But let's say I'm really into rap music and I start wearing a big gold chain, and I used to kind of dress like this. And I start, backwards cap, and I wear a jersey and stuff like that. If I'm dressed like that and people think that I'm up to no good, that's on me a little bit, because I'm dressing like I want to be perceived. I'm dressing like somebody that's a badass. somebody that might be a gang member, because you got to think a lot of this stuff comes from gang culture. And I'm trying to be careful here. I know it's a sensitive topic. Everybody should wear what they want, and you should never profile people because of their race. But certain things come from gang culture, like really baggy clothes. That's from gang culture. Wearing the color red or blue exclusively or in certain spots of your body, that's from gang culture. Carrying guns, that's from gang culture. Stuff like that. Tattoos, gang culture. Switchblades, gang culture. A lot of this stuff is gang culture. And when people who are in gangs, they want to be seen out there, they want you to know that they're affiliated. They want you to know that they're tough. It's like saying, don't mess with me, right? Because the truth is, you cannot survive in some areas without joining up with some sort of gang. I mean, you could hide in your room and read books and play video games and do stuff like that. But the reality is, if you want to have any sort of life, you got to have some people watching your back, or you have to be able to fit in, right? So a lot of times people get into these situations with gangs that, if they grew up in Milwaukee, they probably wouldn't experience. And it's not just black people or Hispanics. There's gangs for every race, every style of life. There's, you have the triads with the Chinese. You have the Russian mafia. And there's movies made about this stuff. Like some of my favorite movies are movies about the triads, the Chinese gangsters, and they're dealing drugs and they start busting out kung fu out of nowhere. Some of those movies are fucking awesome. But every race has its gang culture. The Irish do. Obviously, the Italians do. You have the Aryan Brotherhood and people like that, and the Bloods and the Crips, and it just goes on and on. But the gang culture, it's interesting to me because no matter where you go and what point in history, it's always kind of there. Like that movie Gangs of New York. That's one of my favorite movies, not just because it's Martin Scorsese, but because it does show a little bit. I know it's very fantastical and fantasy, but it is based on a true story. That Bill the Butcher, that was an actual guy. In real life, he wasn't quite as tough. Like if you go on Wikipedia and read about Bill the Butcher, like one of the main stories is him getting his ass kicked. He challenges somebody to a fight, or somebody challenges him to a fight, and because he's affiliated with these gangs, he can't back down. That's another part of it. Once you go down this road, if somebody challenges you, part of being a gang member is you cannot refuse their challenge. You actually have to be able to back up what you're going around, saying that you are. So Bill the Butcher, he fights this guy, and he must have been a bigger or a better fighter than him. He just beats him up. But if you watch Gangs of New York, Bill the Butcher, he's unstoppable. He's a badass. Fantasy and reality don't always coincide. Oh my God. Goodfellas. Probably one of my top 3 movies. It's all about gangs. You got The Sopranos, great show. The Godfather movies. A lot of people consider those to be some of the best movies of all time. Americans have a real strong interest in gangs. I think it has something to do, not just Americans, anybody. It has something to do with like you're growing up, right? And you can never do these things that these people are doing. And these people are living life in a completely different way. They're living life balls to the wall, no F's given. You're like, okay, let's say somebody pissed me off, right? And I just hated them. I'm so mad at them, right? And there's not a whole lot I can do about it. Like, let's say they called my wife a vicious name or something like that. I mean, there's not much I could do about it. I could go and yell at them, but if I go over there and I punch them in the face, I'm going to have to go to jail, right? I'm going to have to pay fines. There's consequences. Well, somebody that's in a gang, they don't fucking care. You know what I mean? If you piss off somebody that's a part of the mafia or in a gang or something, they're going to come to your fucking house that night. They're not even going to be smart about it and wait a long time. They're going to come to your house that night and they're going to shoot up your house or beat you over the head with a trash can or something like that, right? Most people want that. Most people want to be that fucking bad where if somebody messes with them, they can do something about it. Am I right? Fuck yeah, I'm right. Most people wish they had more fucking balls. right? Because we spend most of our lives shrunken into a little corner, not being able to do shit, completely powerless, right? And that's why that's another reason why people fucking join gangs, because they want that type of power. They want that type of power of, you have a problem with me? Well, go kick my ass. It doesn't matter, because I know enough people, I know the right people, where if I want to, you are in trouble, buddy. And it doesn't matter what you do to me. That's that type of empowering feeling that these guys get. And that is why they join gangs, and that's why they continue to stay in gangs. It's about power. It's about being able to be that person that you can't be, that you wish you were. Unfortunately, trying to be that person oftentimes it ends you up in prison or in, dead or worse. So think twice. But at the same time, I'm saying I sort of get it. Anyways, whatever. I'm interested in gangs. I'm not a gang member. I was never in a gang, obviously. I'm not that hard or tough or anything like that. But like most people, I think movies about mafia and movies about gangs are super interesting. And if you go on, if you go on YouTube and you watch some of that gangland stuff and stuff like that, I could just watch that stuff for hours and hours. It's disturbing, but boy, is it interesting. Let's move on. Another thing, before I move on too much, the prison stuff, like prison stories, like that stuff can really be entertaining too. Who wants to do that? Who wants to go to prison? God, prison sounds like the worst. But, there's been so many people that have gone through that and they come out sort of okay, right? If you don't end up worse than when you started. There's one guy on YouTube I really like. I probably shouldn't look him up since I'm talking about him, but he has the best prison stories, and he's all about positive. And I'm going to figure out what this guy's name is, and hopefully I'll remember it by next show and remember to talk about it. But he said something really interesting. He said that people that think that they're tough, they don't really get it. The people that are really tough have everything taken away from them. And that's why prison makes you tough. It's not because you're always fighting or anything like that. It's because they always take stuff away from you. Like, you got to sleep on this crappy hard bed. You don't have the freedoms. You can't do this. You can't do that. And that's what really toughens you up. So if you want to be stronger, take stuff away from yourself. And that just struck a chord with me. That makes so much sense. The more stuff we have taken away from us, the stronger that we get, because it sucks. And I think that's something that you could really think about in your personal life. Like, what do I have that is kind of a privilege? Okay, I've got a BMW, I've got a house, I've got an okay job, I've got both my legs, I've got both my arms, I can breathe okay, I've got both my eyes. Take away an arm, take away the BMW, take away the house. Where are you at now? Can you deal with that? Can you come back from that? If you lose what is most precious to you, are you going to be able to fucking come back from that? Or are you going to fucking give up like most people? What's the answer? Are you going to fucking give up? Or are you going to be okay? It's up to you, buddy. Okay, enough of this. I gotta move on. Okay, so talked about White Lives Matter shirt. Talked about blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is quite something. So, as many of you know, I am totally for the Second Amendment. I'm totally for guns. I hate gun control. I'm not a huge gun nut. I don't have like hundreds and hundreds of guns, but I like guns. I think they keep us safe from thuggery and assault and things of that nature, as well as mass shootings. I do think that some things are a little crazy. Like, I'm not sure I should be able to own a missile launcher. The line probably should be drawn somewhere, but automatic weapons, I'm not sure if you need fully auto, but everything up till that I think is totally fine. And the fact that they would try to take away what little that we are allowed to have is just insane to me. But anyways, one of the newest things that just completely discombobulates and renders the whole gun control thing totally obsolete is 3D printed guns. With a 3D printed gun, I know there's some limitations now, like you can't make quite all the parts yet and you can't make the bullets yet, But really, how do they ever expect to make guns illegal when you can make a gun in a 3D printer? You know, you print out the parts, you put it together, and you're good. You know, just like you might order the parts for an AR-15 and get all the parts from different places and put it together and have a AR-15, you can now do that with 3D printing. And I know some people feel that it's wrong to talk about this stuff because if you tell people that you can make a gun with a 3D printer, it could get into the wrong hands, et cetera, et cetera. But I really think that if a bad person wants a gun, it's fairly easy enough to get. And you don't really need a gun to do bad things because you could use a knife, or more likely you'll use explosives, or you could just run people over with your car. Now, there's a lot of ways you could hurt a lot of people if you really set your mind to it. There's something called a pipe bomb, which basically will shoot crap in every direction and can kill a lot of people. So I personally don't think there's anything wrong with sharing information about 3D printed guns and stuff like that. I think it has a tremendous potential because of what I'm saying, because you can't stop the technology. So no matter how hard they try, if we stop trying to fight them and make a big stink about that and just focus on 3D printed guns and 3D printers and stuff like that, well, that's going to be very annoying to the people that are trying to get rid of all guns, right? I think so. I mean, I'm not going to like start mass producing 3D weapons. I don't think I'll ever get into that. But I mean, as far as sharing the blueprints and the knowledge and showing what's capable, I think there's really something there. I've seen some crazy stuff. Like, there's a lot of people on Twitter. Like, there's a lot of 3D printed guns account, and you had one guy that was like dual wielding them. And you have an AR-15 now, and they're actually figuring out how to make those parts that they couldn't make, and make those parts that are make bullets and stuff like that. Obviously everything should have its limits. I would hate to see any of this stuff get into the hands of children or criminals or people that shouldn't have guns, obviously. But the idea that the government would act like a parent and tell us what we can and can't have, that always bothered me. I always hate when you're getting treated like a kid, because if you're getting treated like a kid, you're getting screwed over somehow, right? They're trying to control you if they're treating you like a kid. They're not respecting you, and that's what our government does to us. They treat us like children. They don't respect us as adults, and that's really how and why we know that there's something wrong. That's why something doesn't sit well with us, because they're telling us they know what we need better than better than us. All right, so talked about that. I think we should do the mind-blowing moment of the day. What do you think? Okay, well. Mind-blowing. Yeah, man, you're blowing my goddamn mind. Mind-blowing. Yeah, drop some acid, dude. Mind-blowing. Yeah, man, hit that bong. Mind-blowing. Yeah. Meditating, go into a trance for 1,000 years, dude. Mind-blowing. Yeah, fucking float in the air like a fucking monk, dude. Yeah, mind-blowing. Yeah, I'm a fucking reptilian. Mind-blowing. Okay, enough of that. So, the mind-blowing moment of the day, I would say would have to be when Connor was talking about the veil lifting and his friends starting to like get followed by this stuff. That's scary. I mean, imagine if like one of you guys came out to hang out with me and then you went home and all of a sudden you got demons walking around your house or something. No, I'm just kidding. That wouldn't happen. But oh my God, can you imagine that? You witness something like that, or somebody shows you, next thing you know, you're always looking over your shoulder and you see some kind of airplane coming at you, and then all these lights start appearing on it, and it starts smiling. You're like, what the fuck? That airplane's fucking smiling at me. What's going on? I really think it's like Transformers. I do. I think it's like Transformers. There's something about those Transformers movies with the Allspark and the Cybertron and Unicron, the Decepticons. Like, if you look at Starscream and the rest of the Decepticons, they're like fallen angels. Like, they're airplanes and jets. And even the way they like transform in those newer movies, doesn't that look like nanobots or something like that? I really think there's something there. Ninja Turtles too. I got that whole Technodome thing from Ninja Turtles. I was huge into Ninja Turtles as a kid. Oh my god. Turtle power. Super into pizza, Michelangelo, Donatello, Raphael, Donatello. Oh my god. Leonardo. Did I say Donatello twice? How disrespectful to Leonardo. But the truth is coming through this stuff. And the truth even comes through those old cartoons that you watched as a kid back in the 80s. There was truth in there. You remember Wildcats? Well, there probably are beings out there that look like that somewhere. There's probably beings that look like the Ninja Turtles or look like Splinter. And speaking of which, how much did the Ninja Turtles do for the martial arts world? Like, Ninja Turtles were as big as Bruce Lee or the Karate Kid, right? Or Chuck Norris. It's one of those things that pushed the culture of martial arts into the mainstream, right? So huge fan of that stuff. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. Or it's not what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about was, wait for it, the XFL. Yeah, I'm actually talking about the fucking XFL on End of Days Radio. And I never thought I would, because when I started End of Days Radio, I almost said I started the XFL. I'm not that stupid. When I started End of Days Radio, the XFL was a long dead memory. It was a complete failure. It was a joke, right? And now the XFL is coming back, and I kind of like it. Don't tell anybody. I kind of like it. Not because I like pro wrestling or Vince McMahon. No. I don't even like Vince McMahon. I mean, I think he's a good businessman, and he's good in some ways, but I won't get into that. I'm excited for it because I like watching football. I've been watching the Seahawks, since they were good. I'm not going to say I'm like the best fan ever. I started getting really into them when they started getting really good, became champs, Super Bowl champs. And I've been watching pretty much ever since. I watched the Hawks as a kid here and there, but they were always just awful. So they were kind of a joke. And if you talked about the Seahawks at school, you were... the other kids would make fun of you. That's how bad it was. And, now everybody loves the Seahawks, even people that live in other states and other areas. So they're loved and they're hated. But I'm excited for the XFL because it just means more football. So instead of the Super Bowl coming around and everything being over, a couple more Sundays and we're back in action. And we're getting a team here in Seattle. They're going to be the Seattle Dragons. And an ex-Seahawk is going to be the coach. So I'm going to check that out. And I think everybody should give the XFL a chance. Whether they fell, whether it's awesome, I think that we should give them a fair chance. Because more football is always a good thing. We got to have something to do during the off season. I'm just not into some of these other sports. I don't watch NASCAR. I don't watch golf. I don't watch baseball. I would watch baseball if the Mariners were maybe not quite so bad. We don't have a basketball team. I complain about that all the time. We don't have a basketball team because it was taken away from us. Taken away from us by a very bad man who did not love our city and did not love us and did not care about us. And he took away our team. And we're still so very upset. And we keep trying. We want a new team. We want to bring the Sonics back. No one will listen to us. We just sit here. And every time we look at a basketball, we cry. We can't even play horse anymore here in this area because it reminds us of the Sonics. And we cry and we cry and we cry. So I can't watch basketball. I don't watch women's sports. Nothing against them, but yeah, the closest thing to a women's sports, I guess I watch some women's MMA fights. I like that stuff, Ronda Rousey and all that. And I might watch some WNBA just because we have no basketball. I heard the Seattle Storm are pretty good. But, that's pretty much it. We are getting a hockey team, which is cool. I'll check that out because I like sports. I think that all sports are amazing, aren't they? Sorry, somebody just popped in the chat and said something weird. I was like, what? I gotta watch for that. That could really screw up the show if I'm paying too much attention to that stuff. But I like sports, and I think every sport, the one thing that frustrates me is I like this, I don't like that. I like American football. I hate soccer. I hate baseball. I like basketball, but I hate women's golf. I like women's golf, but I hate equestrian riding. I like equestrian riding, but I hate esports. I like esports, but I hate basketball. You know what I'm talking about? Like, people are so fucking cheesy with sports. I think all sports are good, whether it's MMA, women's golf, lacrosse, all these weird sports like the one where you sweep the ice and you try to get the puck to go further or whatever. All that stuff's awesome. Every sport has something cool about it. Otherwise, why would people play it? Why would people watch them? Right? So they all have something good about them. I don't go for this stuff where, you say this or that's boring or it sucks or, a big one is football versus soccer. And maybe because they both kind of share the same name, like football or football. And I get that. But, why do we have to fight? Obviously, it's two very different types of people playing these sports. Two completely different types of builds that tend to gravitate towards different sports. Like if you're real tall and huge, you might play basketball. If you're really muscular and just huge-er, but wide, you probably go play football. Or if you're really fast, you play football. Or if you're kind of lazy but love to swing a bat, you'd probably be great at baseball. There's something for everybody. So why hate, right? Golf. Golf is not like the coolest sport in my mind, but if I go out there and I start swinging a club around, look at that. I got some fucking golf clubs. So are we gonna try to say that I'm not a sportsman when I've got golf clubs? What other shit do I have around here? Not a whole lot. But fuck. I should just put a big fat poster of Russell Wilson right fucking there. Like right there. And just show what a Seahawks fanatic I am, right? Probably not, because that has nothing to do with End of Days Radio. I should stick to what I've got. The fucking alien that you can barely see and the little chickadee creature right here. And just a bunch of odds and ends. Oh, my anonymous mask fell off back there. I'll have to fix that. But I know I need to spice this place up. I'm going to get like an actual studio soon. I'm going to get some cool shit behind me so you don't have to stare at my junk. I'm going to get like a beach, right? I'll have a beach right here. Right here. I'll have a beach. And then I'll have Laura Croft right here in a bikini for you guys to look at. So while I'm doing the show, Laura Croft is going to be like dancing around in her bikini for all of you guys to see. And it's going to be splendid. I mean, the actual Laura Croft, not any of the actresses that have played her. It's going to be the Laura Croft. You guys remember that when Tomb Raider came out? We were all excited and hot and bothered by a pixelated, blocky video game. And we play Tomb Raider and be like, oh shit, if you hit this left directional button slightly, you can get her in a position where she looks fucking great. Right? Oh, Tomb Raider. That was a badass game. That was one of the first 3D games. That's another reason why it was so amazing. But, man, that Laura Croft, whew, she got me hot and bothered back when I was a young man. I was all about that tomb raiding. And then there's that part in the game, like so many people aren't going to know what the hell I'm talking about, but some people are, where all of a sudden a T-Rex comes out of nowhere and starts coming at you. And this was like pre-internet, or the internet was very new, so we didn't know all this stuff was going to happen. When you saw it, you're like, oh shit. And it looked like crap because it was a PlayStation 1. It looked super blocky and pixelated, but back then we were like, oh my god, graphical overload. This is supremely sublime. Whoa, shit. Right? Do you guys ever play retro games to get a bite or a blast of the past? Do you ever play Sonic the Hedgehog or Mario Brothers 3 or some of those crazy ass games from back then? I was playing on emulators. You get those emulators to play those old games. I was playing some of those sports games and football games, and I swear they're like better than some of the new ones made now, which is pretty pathetic. But oh man, I'd say one passion of mine lately are these games called Metroidvania games, right? So I know I'm going off on a tangent. I don't give a fuck. And why? Because it's my fucking show, maybe. But anyways, I'm into these Metroidvania games. And the term Metroidvania is from Castlevania and also Metroid. There was a game called Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And this was like the quintessential and first Metroidvania game. It started the whole Metroidvania thing because it was Castlevania, but it was like Metroid. So they call it Metroidvania. And basically, these games are like 2D side-scrolling RPGs. So they're like Mario Brothers or Castlevania, but they have RPG elements. So you level up as you kill guys. You look for items, and you get different items that you can carry around and use to attack enemies with. You get spells and stuff like that. And holy shit, are these games addicting? Fuck. Like, there's the original Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And then the dude that made that game had a Kickstarter campaign because everybody wanted it. And he came out with this game called Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. And that game was fucking badass. And then I found out about this other game called Dead Cells. And if you want to play a game that will consume your whole life and actually kind of come off like an old school 8-bit or 16-bit game, yet be super addicting, get this fucking game. You could probably get it for $20. It's called Dead Cells. It just keeps going and going and going. Whoa, shit! Hello.
Hey, Daniel, how you doing?
Hey there. How's it going?
All right. Hey, I only got a minute. What I called about was demons. They're just aliens.
Demons are aliens?
Yeah, think about it. Back in the day when the church was all getting started, and if you had contact with an alien, they would demonize them, so you couldn't have contact with them, so they couldn't tell you the truth about things. That makes sense?
Yeah, I've heard that before, and I really think that there is truth to what you're saying, but also it's not quite that simple because you have other dimensional beings, right? So maybe it's more like... So, okay. So if you have interdimensional beings, they're kind of in between. They're not really aliens, they're not really demons, but they kind of lean closer to demon, right?
No, it's just saying that back in the day, if interdimensional beings or aliens contacted you, and you told the church about it, they would call them demons to keep you from having more contact with them, so they could keep scaring you to come.
Yeah, my answer to that, Al, would be we got to keep going back into ancient times with the Anunnaki and the Nephilim, and that's where the demons and the aliens are going to come together and sort of be the same thing.
It was like that dude was saying, yeah, they're both the name of Jesus. How about this? They're just being respectful, not being scared.
It's possible. I mean, I don't know all the rules out there, and that's something that I thought was a possibility for many years after I had some UFO experiences. I don't really know. I don't think that it could possibly be as strict as the biblical idea that many Christians have of the universe. I don't think it's just aliens, or I'm sorry, I don't think it's just the devil versus God and angels versus demons. I think that there's a whole, you could use the label alien, you could use the label demon, but whatever these higher dimensional creatures are, there's got to be an entire world of different types, right? There's got to be all kinds of different kinds.
Right. It's like on Star Trek.
Kinda, but Star Trek is such bullshit.
All kinds of different. Well, according to my Urantia book, there's all kinds of human civilizations all spread out through all over the galaxy and the universe. And this one, this one got quarantined along with several other solar systems that sided with Lucifer, Satan, not Lucifer. Lucifer didn't cause the rebellion. Satan did. Lucifer was Satan's boss and just kind of sat back and let it happen. Kind of a loop about the whole thing. Didn't give a shit. That's why he got in trouble.
Yeah, I've heard...
But I got a picture of Anki on my Facebook page. You want me to send it to you?
No. I'm very familiar with Ancient Astronauts. I'm familiar with the Rancha book. I've read all that stuff, and I'm familiar with it already. I haven't read everything. I mean, of course not. There's a whole world of things that I've never even looked at yet. I need to start reading again. But my point is that I kind of just take little bits from everything, and I don't necessarily believe this or that. I mean, I can say for sure there's a God, and I can say for sure that there are these interdimensional creatures kind of fooling us. But, you know, once we get too specific, I sort of back off, and I'm like, you know what? I don't really know. I mean, aliens, demons, like I said, everything's probably some sort of higher dimensional type of being, and there's probably different levels. Like we were saying earlier, there's like a fourth dimension and a fifth dimension and a sixth dimension and maybe a seventh dimension that's heaven, or you know what I mean? Like there's different levels and layers there.
There's actually 7 levels above Earth and 7 levels below. What you would call hell are the 7 levels below, and what you would call heaven are the 7 levels above.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at, like that Enochian sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the truth. That's to me, that resonates as true with me. That by saying this, we're getting way closer than saying like, I know reality is not like Star Trek, but I know it's not necessarily like what most Christians think about the Bible either. If that kind of makes sense, like neither of those things are real, fully.
Yeah, well, it's like I think the Bible's a ball of shit full of little diamonds. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense because it's been edited and
the diamonds are the truth, and the ball of shit's all the minutia wrapped around it to keep you in line.
Yeah, that's perfect to me. I mean, the idea that everything's the devil, that's not true. I mean, there's things from other cultures that were destroyed by the Catholics that were a true loss for humankind. I mean, a lot of that that stuff that comes from other cultures contains truth as well, like from native cultures or from Eastern cultures. We can't discount that stuff because we, like Christianity, et cetera, et cetera. There's little diamonds in that stuff too, and that's why we can't be like that. We can't say this is better than that. We got to take it all in and then come to some sort of conclusion, hopefully.
Right. Hey, here's a good one for you. I pulled over so I could call you on an off-ramp. I couldn't call you before because Salt Lake's off-ramps are all fucked up. If you get off on an off-ramp, you have to make the left or right-hand turn. You can't get back on the freeway. And then the ones down in Utah County, the streets that cross over and under the freeway, the roadway crosses over to the opposite side of the road while you're going under or over the freeway, so I couldn't get off and talk to you. Then I finally found a place I could pull off, put my four-ways on, and frickin' highway patrol pulled up behind me and turned his frickin' lights on. I'm start rolling again to call you, but hey, I got a photograph of Enki, the creator of the human race. You want me to send it to you?
What do you mean photograph? How could you have a photograph of him?
Somebody managed to get a photograph of him and stick it under the earth.
And you believe it's real?
It looks real enough to me.
But do you believe it's real?
Oh yeah, I recognized him as soon as I saw it.
All right. Well, yeah, Daniel endofdaysradio at gmail.com.
I got it on my Facebook page right now, but I had to make my Facebook page private. You know what I mean? All my friends can see my stuff.
Yeah, Enki's...
You don't have a real...
Enki?
Yeah, Enki, the Anunnaki that created the human race out of the monkeys to mine the gold.
Yeah, Enki is a very interesting character. I've read the book of Enki by Zecharia Sitchin, and there are people that say that he's Satan, and then other people that say he's the absolute friend of humanity, and he's showed us all the cool shit that the other gods were trying to keep from us.
Yeah, because he created us, and then they had some infighting, and freaking another Anunnaki got control, took the power or whatever, became the king or emperor, whatever you want to call it.
But there's something that happened that was...
Enki aside.
Yeah, there's something that happened later on, though, where the gods of old seemed to kind of back off, and then you had the Hebrews running around with this Yahweh God, and he was them, and their God was starting to go around and like screw with stuff and kill all the other peoples and take over their cultures, and it seemed like the Anunnaki kind of took off after that.
Well, it's because Nibiru took off. It only comes through the solar system every 3,600 years.
Yeah, that seems to be what is in the Zecharia Sitchin books. Is it called the 10th Planet series? It's been so long, but that seems
I've seen pictures of it. It's out there, but it's in another dimension. That's why it's not affecting us right now.
So you believe in space. You don't believe in a flat Earth or anything like that.
I don't know. Somebody else commented earlier in the chat, flat Earth, and I was like, yeah, the Earth is a disc riding on the back of a turtle. LOL. That's what the Native Americans say.
Oh, a disc. I thought you said dick for a second. I was like, what? The Earth is shaped like a giant dick.
No, it's like a giant disc riding on the back of a turtle.
Well, yeah, that's totally possible.
I'm still a firm believer in that Matrix computer freaking hologram world, like the holodeck on Star Trek.
Yeah, it's really weird because there have been people that have looked into Planet X that have been killed for doing so. So I wonder, are they finding Nibiru? Are they finding something to do with the flat Earth? Obviously, whatever they are paying attention to is freaking out those in power, and they don't want that information to get to us. So what is it? Is that Nibiru? Maybe you know what I mean? Maybe that's something they're trying to keep hidden.
Well, I don't know. There's something wrong with the Matrix. I just got an MVR printout on my driving record, and it's showing me getting a speeding ticket in Tennessee that I don't remember ever getting, and it showed me getting a ticket in 1999 before I even had my CDL.
What the fuck?
Well, how the hell? I didn't get my CDL till June of 2000, and I'm looking at my MVR and it's showing that I got my CDL printout. It's showing me that I got some sort of ticket back in '99. I'm all, what the hell is this crap? I didn't even have my CDL at the time.
What? How does that happen?
So obviously, it was a timeline change. That Mandela effect crap.
It's not a computer mistake?
No, it's some sort of Mandela effect garbage.
Well, I would double check that.
You
I would double check that before you dismiss it as.
Well, it's not affecting my driver. It's not affecting my license right now. I just got a printout of everything, all my moving violations and shit. I thought, I've never gotten them. What's this shit?
Hey, Al.
Most of the tickets on there, I recognize, but like, there was a couple of them. What the fuck this shit?
Al, could I ask you something personal?
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you ever had anybody piss you off so bad that you wanted to get revenge against them?
Have I ever been pissed off at somebody so bad?
Have you ever been so pissed off at somebody that you had to get revenge against them?
Nope.
Ever in your whole life?
I don't know. My ex-girlfriend, she was the local Rosicrucian high priestess. And she was always throwing her fucking magic garbage on me, and I was getting sick of it, so I took her powers away from her. I got a hold of her a few years ago. I haven't been with her like 16, 15 years. I got a hold of her a couple of years ago. And so I said, how come my powers don't work no more? What's going on? How come my powers are gone? I didn't tell her, but yeah, I had to take them away from her because she kept using her fucking magic crap on me, and I got tired of it.
Was she hot?
So you could call that revenge. No.
She was not hot.
No, I just hooked up with her because she was the local Rosicrucian high priestess, but I could use that to my advantage.
Was she butt ugly?
A little bit. A lot of guys thought she was a dude.
Nice.
But hey, most of them look like dudes without the makeup, right?
No, but
Yeah.
sounds like this one did.
Yeah. A good chunk of women, you take the makeup off, they look like dudes.
Yeah, I guess. But sounds like.
Well, I watch 5 PD and I see a bunch of women getting fucked with by the cops. They ain't wearing no makeup. That's funny. They look like dudes.
Did you have sex with her?
Of course I did.
It wasn't hard, being that she wasn't very attractive?
Well, here's a good one for you. One day, Friday, a bunch of people decided they wanted to see what having sex with me was like, so they astral projected and jumped inside of her to have sex while I was having sex with her.
Oh, shit. So you were actually having sex with like 5 people?
Try a line of hundreds of people.
Holy shit.
And once I noticed what was going on, I was all, fuck that shit. If you're going to be coming with me, you're bringing your cooch with you, too. Every time somebody new jumped in there, that pussy felt different.
Did you put a bag over her head or make her face down or anything like that?
No, I got this thing when I'm having sex with a girl, she's fucking not that attractive. I can fucking alter time to where she was younger and a little bit better looking.
Oh, that sounds like a helpful trick.
Take her back to where she was at least decent looking enough to be fucking on.
Yeah, Al, you
I
consider
don't hook up with her because she was. Go ahead.
you consider yourself to be like a sorcerer or a magician, right?
A magus.
A magi?
In Druidry, that's magus. Magus. In Druidry, that's the highest form of magician.
Oh, a magus.
Yeah.
Like the Grand Magus, like from a metal album.
I don't know, like Magus. Magus.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like a magus, like
Yeah,
a wizard.
Yeah, it's so hard to hear you. Got outside of Salt Lake area.
So you're
Flying
saying
out in the countryside here.
you're saying you have a technique you can use where I'm banging a MILF, a cougar, like some chicks that's a little older, and I can like do this particular technique and make her look like she was in her prime.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna have to teach me this one, buddy.
That's just something that came natural to me. I don't even know how I did it. I just decided fucking, if I want to do this, I'm going to fucking make her look decent.
I'm gonna take it one step further. I'm gonna make them all look like Scarlett Johansson.
No, you can't do that.
Oh, okay. Well, who knows? Maybe if I work on your techniques and I somehow like I channel more energy into it, maybe I could improve your technique a little bit.
Possible. I just needed to do what I needed to do to make it worth my while, you know what I mean?
Do you ever invent magic like on the fly?
My what?
Do you ever just create magic, like come up with your own spells and techniques just on the fly, like when you're driving?
No, but years ago when I got invited into some Illuminati school of magic, at first I got denied entry because, I don't know why I got denied entry, but fucking I was given a waiver. Well, let's give him a year to see if he can fucking improve. And when I found out, I was all, fuck that shit, and I improved in like a week or two and got my entry into it. But then they're all, this guy's got morals and ethics. You can't let him in here corrupting everybody and fucking being good guys. So they denied me entry. But like, in order to get in there, you have to come up with a new form. You have to develop your own style of magic. You know, like when you're a 5th degree black belt, you got to come up with your own form of martial arts.
Yeah.
I didn't just come up with one fucking kind of new magic. I came up with dozens.
Do you still date women that are like sorcerers and witches and all that?
I haven't been with another person in 15, 16 years now. After that last one of the Rosicrucian High Priests, I'm done.
Oh no, that long, huh?
You know, pretty girls like lame music, and life's too short to put up with that and listen to fucking Taylor Swift and fucking any of that fucking so-called, I'm not gonna use any words for it, but that rap and hip-hop garbage. I was gonna call it something else, but I'll be nice on here.
Yeah, you don't like rap. We talked about that last time. You don't like really any sort of rap.
I like white guys wearing clown makeup doing rap. That's it exclusively. Don't care for any black people doing it at all. It's all garbage.
Yeah, you're.
But hey, you know all the black rappers hate ICP and Twisted. You know why?
Why?
Because ICP and Twisted are the kings of it.
Ooh, that's quite the statement. I don't know if people are going to agree with that.
Well, hey, why else would all the fucking black rappers hate ICP and Twisted? Well, they don't all hate them. Eshawn's fucking black and King Gordy's black, but I don't like rappers wearing clown makeup that are associated with ICP and Twisted.
Yeah,
I find the rest of it garbage.
It seems like most styles hate other styles. Like the Guns N' Roses fans hated Nirvana, and the alternative people hated that old rock, and they hated the old metal stuff, and the rap.
No, like ICP and Twisted, they attack everybody who should be attacked. As far as the groups, like gays and whatever. That's why I like Guar, because they made fun of everybody that fucking sucked.
How do you feel about Marilyn Manson?
I like a few of his songs. I'm not really a big, huge fan, but I'm not averse to him either.
Yeah,
He likes to rescue runaway teenage girls and get them going back home and shit. So I got props for that.
yeah, that's cool of him.
Like these teenage girls that run away from home, then he comes across them, then he talks them into going back home. Takes care of them for a few days and counsels them a little bit, and then gets them to go back home and fucking deal with their shit instead of fucking staying runaway and becoming a victim, right?
Are you familiar with Billie Eilish or Billie Eilish?
No, I don't care for any of this new music. I think it's all garbage.
Yeah, that's probably
It's all done on. It's all made with people don't play fucking instruments no more. They do it all on the computer.
Yeah, I was looking through some old songs I made like a year ago, and I was thinking, man, this is better than 90% of pop music. This is better than Taylor Swift, and I suck.
There you go.
I've never heard one Taylor Swift song that I think is good.
Well, I got this joke. Taylor Swift writes fucking 500 songs about guys leaving her, but not one song about sucking dick. Maybe she should have started singing about sucking dick. Maybe these guys quit leaving her.
Well, then she would be a little bit more like Nicki Minaj if she was doing that.
Yeah.
Do you ever get it?
Yeah, I'm very opinionated. I've got a lot of strong. I don't hate black people. I just hate gangster thug wannabes and all the fucking rap and hip hop bands and shit, rappers and hip hoppers. I just don't care for them. They all fucking act like you can't be safe in their neighborhood. You know what I mean?
So Al, let me ask you. So you're driving for miles and miles and miles. Are you keeping your eye out for like interesting things? Like, what do you do when you're out there on the road? Do you like park and read? Do you do magic spells? Do you like what are you doing when you're in between when you're actually driving?
Well, since I'm done with you, I'm going to be listening to Coast to Coast on a Los Angeles station all the way up here in Utah.
Nice. So a lot of radio.
That's funny. When I first found that station, I was up in Butte, Montana. That's a Los Angeles station.
Do you listen to podcasts?
No. I got my MP3 player. I listen to my records. Black Sabbath. See what I got on there. I got Black Sabbath's discography, Motorhead's discography, Iron Maiden's discography, ICP's discography. Got some Stuart Ungle on there. I got some, who else? I got the Beatles on there. No, mostly when I'm driving down the road, I listen to conservative, or I listen to AM talk. I listen to that radio station out of LA and listen to top news talk.
Do you ever get stoned?
Sorry, what?
Do you ever get stoned?
I was, but I had to quit. Got to fucking be taking a piss test here shortly.
Do you like music as much when you're not stoned?
I like listening to it, but I don't care to be. Like, I had to quit smoking pot. All I've been doing since I quit smoking pot is sitting on my ass watching TV when I'm at home. I got a new recording program, brand new computer. I got my fucking program all dialed in, shit like that, and I don't feel motivated to do anything unless I'm high.
Oh yeah, we played some of your songs earlier. I don't even think I said which ones they were, but we played The Genie and Symphony Number 3, Part 2. Played a little Todd in between as well. What was the name of your YouTube channel again?
Right now it's just my name, Alan Davern, but I'm getting ready to change that to Martian Medicine. Well, see, the thing is, if I want to change my actual page to Martian Medicine Man, I have to change my Google name.
Oh. Well, Al, I appreciate
but
you.
I already looked into that, and I thought, fuck, that's a lot of hassle just to freaking change my name.
Well, Al, I appreciate you calling in, buddy. I'm gonna let you go and get on with things.
All right, yeah, I got to go in. But let me tell you this real quick. On Facebook now, if you're not using your actual name on Facebook, your name on your driver's license, I'll tell you to freaking fix it and put your actual name in. Like I know this guy named Chris the Photo Man Kensel. He's got to take the Photo Man off there. Anybody not using their real name on there is going to get kicked off here soon.
Yeah, they've been forcing me to do that for a while, which is ridiculous because that keeps me from even
Yeah,
using
well,
it.
YouTube's doing the same thing. Too many people being anonymous. If you're not using your real name on your YouTube page, they're going to be making you change that too soon.
They better not, because how am I going to have a channel? Like, people's channels have names. I don't see how that would work. Maybe they're going to
No,
have.
you have a channel, not a, you're not doing it like you got ninja shoes, right?
No, I'm End of Days Radio on YouTube.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're not going to make you change that because you're a show and stuff like that. I'm talking about regular people.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. They're really clamping down, and the more they start doing that, the less I'm going to be using those services, because why would you? You can just wait for some other company to come out with something where you don't have to put your fucking name on there.
Right. Right. Well, you'll be able to keep your end of days radio. I'm just talking about regular people loading up. There's just too many people putting shit on there trying to be anonymous.
Yeah, they want to cut down on trolling and people being mean, which is ridiculous.
You have a show, so they won't be messing with you. I'm just talking about regular people. Like I have to have, for my regular channel, I have to have my name on it, but I can have side channels.
Well, right on, Al. I will. I appreciate you calling in, and we'll talk more about it later, buddy.
All right, I'll send you that picture of Anki, but I'll text it to you. But yeah, I just wanted to let you know that demons are just aliens, and the church demonized them to keep people from talking to them, and finding out the truth.
Okay, I don't fully agree, but I appreciate your input.
I'm going to talk to you. I'll send you that picture in a minute.
Okay, right on. Bye.
All right, ciao.
I'm getting a picture of Anki sent to me. I'm excited. I might be surprised. I'm not expecting to see a real fucking alien. I'm expecting it to be like some plasticky, blurry shit. But hey, I keep an open mind because like Connor Murphy that came on. I wouldn't think that his videos would be so good. But if you've seen what I saw and you see those videos, you're like, fuck, that's it. So I keep an open mind. And I do think that, with aliens, I hate to say that there's no aliens, because if I say that, I'm discounting a lot of what's out there. I'm discounting things that I don't mean to convey when I say that, because there obviously is a long history of beings visiting people, whether they're other dimensional or whatever. I hesitate to say there's no aliens. But at the same time, it's obvious to me that there's some deception going on, right? With this, everybody's got to believe in aliens and blah, 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 blah. I've talked about it a million times on this show. I've been studying aliens and UFOs for a good portion of my life. And I wish I had more answers for you guys. I've been spending a lot of time at this, but, who knows? I don't know. I just some demons. I don't know. And I'm not going to pretend to, because that's what this show is about. Not knowing and going to places that are strange and weird, that frighten others, that frighten them. If it frightens them, that means it's probably going to be a good podcast, right? But there's a lot of people out there that believe in aliens, and I hate to alienate them, right? Ha 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 ha. I made a funny alienate. Ha ha ha. I'd hate to alienate them. So I've kind of chilled out a little bit on the aliens are demons. Don't talk to an alien because it's a demon and it's going to possess you, which very well might be true. But can I really state the nature of XYZ person's experience? No. Chances are things are quite a bit more complicated than I know or you know. That's pretty obvious. I'm sure if we knew the true truth, it wouldn't be so simple. What's probably going on? What's probably going on is that whatever is out there beyond the veil is just so freaking weird and so freaking alien. The only way that we can handle it is if we compartmentalize it and we break it down and we simplify it and we come up with our belief systems. But the true truth, like we alluded to earlier during the interview, the true truth is crazy. giants walking around, and monsters, and dragons, and skeleton warriors. Can you imagine having to do battle with skeleton warriors? Well, that very well might have been what the ancient past looked like. We're talking about dudes flying around on Pegasuses, fighting Medusas, and fighting with skeleton warriors. Stuff like that. The old myths and legends. Truth. You know what I'm saying? All that you have to counter that is what you've been taught and what you've seen on TV and what's been driven into your mind by all this technology that we're surrounded with. None of us were alive before all this technology was everywhere. This technology, it's all robotic. Even this microphone, it's technology. Technology. There's technology everywhere. We're just technology inside of more technology. Triangles inside of triangles. Did you know that you can fit an infinite amount of triangles inside other triangles? And the triangles just keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And there's no limit to how small you can make these triangles. So eventually we're going to get to a place that's so small that the laws of physics don't apply to us in the same way, right? And then where are we at that point? Are we in another dimension? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? But I like to ask these questions. What happens when you take a mirror and you stick a mirror and the two mirrors can see each other, right? And you look one way and it just goes on forever, and you look the other way and it just goes on forever. That's because that's the truth. The truth is two mirrors. Like, that's consciousness, and that's also the universe. Because when you stick two mirrors against each other, it just goes on forever and ever. It's like your mental talk, right? There's no limit to it. It can just keep going. Because you think of something and you realize what you thought about, it makes you think of something else. It's reflecting, and it's able to keep going because it's reflecting. That's the universe, right? So if I stick two mirrors next to each other, if I use the right sort of magical technique, I wonder if I can jump in this side or jump in that side and like jump into a different realm where everything's slightly different, right? So every me that's in the line of mirrors is like a different version of me. It's just slightly different, right? It's like the DC universe with the multiverse. There's truth in everything. There's truth in comic books. There's truth in kids' cartoons. There's truth in literature that is very aged. I noticed that a lot of things from the past people consider to be inferior, but that's not the case either. Like, a lot of that old comic book art from back in the day, it was better than the crap you have now. A lot of the books and stories that were written back in the day, they put a lot more effort into them than the crap that we have now. Which makes you say, got a lot of reboots and remakes and stuff like that, but it's not that original. You know what? I'm tired. I gotta stop this show. I gotta get out of here. I did wear my Los Polos shirt. Let's see if you can see that. You know, I wore that today because I wanted to celebrate Better Call Saul coming back on air, or the last episode's being released, however you want to put it. Really excited about that. It's going to be the final season. I'm a huge Breaking Bad fan and a huge Better Call Saul fan, as many of you are. So I thought I'd wear this shirt. You know, Los Polos is the chain of chicken places that Gustavo, one of the bad guys, he owns, and that's how he was. You know, I don't want to spoil it for those two people left in the world that haven't seen Breaking Bad, but huge fan. So I just wore this today as a little bit of a tribute. It's just a tribute. And other than that, hey, endofdaysradio.com. 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 And also, get us wherever you get podcasts: iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Store, iHeartRadio. Anywhere you can get podcasts, you should be able to find us. And if you can't, let me know, because we should be there. So subscribe. Go to endofdaysradio.com. Check us out on YouTube. If you subscribe on YouTube, you'll get notified whenever I go live. So a benefit there. Also, donate to End of Days Radio. I do appreciate your donations. I do have to remind myself to ask for donations. I don't like to ask, but really I put in quite a bit of hard work, and I'm not asking to get paid. I would never ask that, but if you could spare a shilling, if you could spare just a few Canadian dollars, if you could spare some pesos or some yen, it would help me very much in my undertakings. Because when you give me $5, I take that $5 and I buy myself something amazing like a comic book. And I think about you when I see that comic book. But seriously though, it's nice when you guys make donations, because I do this show for free. And it's a nice little incentive. I mean, I'm never going to make as much as the time I'm putting in. I'm never even going to make minimum wage. But you throw those $5 incentives at me, boy. You see how many shows I can do. So if you enjoy the show, donate your organs, and I will feed them to my gray alien friends. I'm going to get that Bitcoin thing up. I know I'm sloughing on it. I'm sorry. I'll get there. Oh, I have the worst voice. Other than that, plug the website, this, that. That's it. That's all I got for you. I love you guys. This is usually when I talk about our next show during my ramblings. We've got another show on Valentine's Day with an actual female. They do exist. The legends are true. They do exist. We will be talking to Rachel Tobias, who is a truther and a stand-up comic. So, wow. She seems pretty interesting. I talked to her a little bit on the Twitter. Got to know her a little bit, and she seems like a very good fit for End of Days Radio. So next time, be there or die a miserable, lonely death with no Daniel, with no Book of Daniel. You know, that's almost what I called the show, the Book of Daniel. But things didn't work out that way. So End of Days Radio forever and ever and ever. Love you guys. Have a good fucking night. I will see you next time. Good night.